Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Shalom, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, Salam Kebajikan. The Chairman of Faculty of Economics and Business Universitas Brawijaya International Conference, Your Excellency, Mrs. Sylviasna Prestianawati SEMSI. Excellencies, the President of AIBPM, Lim Kaisin PhD. The speakers of today's event, Dr. Sharif Rasel, Dr. Sergey Ivanov, Professor Dr. Rami Frederick Littrell, Associate Professor Dr. Anis Jani Ali, Excellencies participants, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning and welcome to the 2022 Faculty of Economics and Business Universitas Brawijaya International Conference FEBIC FEBIC, held by Faculty of Economics and Business Universitas Brawijaya and supported by the Association of International Business and Professional Management AIBPM. I am Aulia Herdiani. I feel honored to be the host for today's event. It is such a perfect opportunity for us to interact and network you all, peers and colleagues around the world, including Indonesia, Malaysia, India, Bangladesh, Japan, Australia, Hong Kong, Nigeria, Pakistan, United States of America, Russia, and South Africa. I do appreciate you for taking your busy schedule to join us today, Saturday, October 15, 2022. As we all may know that we've been struggling from the outbreak, nevertheless, we keep going through all difficulties and challenges to survive and even to grow. On these occasions, we'll have outstanding discussions from our prominent speakers on business transformations and continuity for economic advancements. Thus, we also like to deliver our gratitude to Flinders University, Australia, University of the District of Columbia, United States of America, National Research University, Higher School of Economics, Russia, University Sains Malaysia, Malaysia, ITM University, Gwalior, India, Symbiosis Center for Management Studies, India, Center for Studies in Science Policy, Jawaharlal Nehru University, India, Jindal Center for Global South, India, Maharashtra Institute of Technology, India, Tribhuvan University, Nepal, Fitrox College, Malaysia, Prestige Institute of Management and Research, India, Dr. Shakuntala Misra National Rehabilitation University, India, STIA Jaya Negara Taman Siswa, Malang, Indonesia, Dawood University of Engineering and Technology, Pakistan, Sydenham Institute of Management Studies, Research and Entrepreneurship Educations, India, Gandhi Institute of Technology and Management, India, Mangalmai Institute of Management and Technology, India, the University of Chenab, Pakistan, Technological and Higher Education Institute of Hong Kong, Osun State Polytechnic, Nigeria, SRM Institute of Science and Technology, India, Sri Balaji University, India, RV Institute of Management, India, Dev Samaj College for Women, India, Amity University, India, Savitribai Phule Pune University, India, Universitas Jember, Indonesia, and Tokyo University, Japan, for the contribution for this event. Ladies and gentlemen, before we officially begin our international conference, we will reverse and listen to our national anthem, Indonesia Raya. Excellency speakers, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I present you Faculty of Economics and Business, Universitas Brawijaya, Universitas Jember, and aibpm.
Universitas Brawijaya is one of the leading universities in Indonesia with more than 60,000 students in various degrees. It is awarded an A accreditation by National Accreditation Agency for Higher Education and granted the 4th best university in Indonesia based on 4ISU World University Ranking. Universitas Brawijaya has 15 faculties, in which Faculty of Economics and Business is the best faculty. Malang Economic University, or as known as MEU, the embryo of Faculty of Economics and Business, was established by Malang Economic Higher Education Foundation on June 27, 1957, with Notary Decree No. 26 dated on August 15, 1957. Malang Economic University merged into part of Universitas Brawijaya and was called a Faculty of Economics on October 3, 1961. Years ago, and Faculty of Economics never stopped improving itself. It was on January 14, 2011, an institutional transformation was created from Faculty of Economics to Faculty of Economics and Business. This became one of the cornerstones of fundamental change and a necessity due to internal developments as well as changes in the organization's external demands, including changes in the organization's environment, scientific development, and demands for international accreditation towards the world-class faculty. Faculty of Economic and Business Universitas Brawijaya mission statement is becoming an internationally reputable higher education institution in economics and business, which produce graduates possessing entrepreneurial spirit, humanity, environment, and spiritual awareness, and develop knowledge and technology in order to serve society through education and research based on local and universal values. Currently, Faculty of Economic and Business Universitas Brawijaya has 3 departments with 14 study programs, consisting of undergraduate and postgraduate programs.
Faculty of Economic and Business in University of Brawijaya. I got special experience here. While studying class, I feel the dynamic learning and teaching activities. Among there is many cultural and language differences between us, but also we have the great opportunity to see many science perspectives from local and international students.
The way we learn in the Faculty of Economics and Business Universitas Brawijaya isn't always within the classroom. We have the opportunity to imply our knowledge into the actual business or economical activities, such as Entrepreneur Days, where we were asked to create our own business and present it. We also have company visit to gain insights on the actual industry.
Faculty of Economics and Business Universitas Brawijaya continuously improve its quality by transforming and creating positive contribution to produce graduates who are capable of facing global competitions and serving society.
Apapun yang kita miliki, apapun sumber daya kita, tak akan menghasilkan kemakmuran jika kita tidak tahu bagaimana cara mengelolanya. Kebutuhan manusia terus berkembang, sementara itu sumber daya untuk memenuhinya selalu terbatas. Seiring dengan perkembangan ilmu pengetahuan dan teknologi di bidang perekonomian dan bisnis, kini manusia dituntut untuk serba bisa dan menguasai berbagai bidang keahlian. Itulah sebabnya mengapa kami harus ada dan harus terus terlibat dalam pengembangan ekonomi dan bisnis yang berwawasan lingkungan dan agroindustri berbasis teknologi informasi serta menghasilkan cendekia berkarakter Pancasila. Hingga saat ini, Fakultas Ekonomi dan Bisnis Universitas Jember memiliki 3 jurusan, yaitu jurusan Manajemen, jurusan Ilmu Ekonomi dan Studi Pembangunan, dan jurusan Akuntansi. Fakultas Ekonomi dan Bisnis Universitas Jember didukung oleh sumber daya manusia yang berkompeten dan berdedikasi tinggi. Tenaga pendidik di Fakultas Ekonomi dan Bisnis Universitas Jember berjumlah 121 orang, terdiri dari profesor, doktor, dan magister.
Untuk mewujudkan visi dan misi Fakultas Ekonomi dan Bisnis Universitas Jember, saat ini Fakultas Ekonomi dan Bisnis Universitas Jember telah menjalin kerjasama dengan lebih dari 70 stakeholder dalam negeri dan 25 stakeholder dari luar negeri.
Bekerja sama dengan lembaga pemerintahan yang memungkinkan tenaga pendidik dan mahasiswa Fakultas Ekonomi dan Bisnis Universitas Jember dapat memahami pengetahuan tentang kebijakan dan sistem pengambilan keputusan secara implementatif yang berdampak pada bidang ekonomi dan bisnis. Fakultas Ekonomi dan Bisnis Universitas Jember selalu berbenah dan terus berupaya melengkapi sarana dan prasarana yang dapat menunjang tercapainya visi dan misi. Sampai saat ini, di lingkungan Fakultas Ekonomi dan Bisnis Universitas Jember telah dilengkapi dengan berbagai sarana dan prasarana, antara lain Sistem Informasi Terpadu atau SISTER adalah platform sistem informasi terintegrasi yang digunakan di lingkungan Universitas Jember. Lab komputer, ruang internasional, ruang baca, ruang multimedia, ruang kelas dengan fasilitas TV, AC, dan Wi-Fi kelas, ruang ujian, ruang sidang, laboratorium bersama, sarana dan prasarana olahraga, Plaza Fakultas Ekonomi dan Bisnis, gazebo. Fakultas Ekonomi dan Bisnis Universitas Jember adalah salah satu fakultas favorit di Universitas Jember. Animo yang besar dan jumlah program studi yang banyak menuntut tanggung jawab yang besar pula untuk selalu berkembang dan maju dengan dasar visi yang benar-benar membidik akurat ke depan, sesuai dengan tuntutan dan kebutuhan zaman. Fakultas Ekonomi dan Bisnis Universitas Jember, untuk perekonomian dan bisnis dunia, jayalah selamanya.
This academic conference is one of the most important conferences specifically to me because it allows us academics and students, our students, to get together and start sharing the latest in terms of research and education. I encourage all to participate in this wonderful conference, and I thank the organizers for this wonderful conference. Thank you.
This is my first time to attend these activities, and I really love it. It belongs to accounting, management, and also business. And as I am master of accounting, I really enjoyed, and I got really many beneficial knowledge from these activities, and I would like to join to the next agenda of this program.
Thanks a lot for inviting me to such conference that we got experience. It's really benefit for new generation. So we are so happy that we join such kind of conference. Hopefully next time we will enjoy another conference, such beneficial conference.
Kesan saya selama mengikuti international conference ini sangat recommended ya, karena sejak dari proses aplikasi submit paper sampai dengan pelaksanaan baik ini versi online maupun offline, suasananya Bagus, enjoy.
Saya happy banget ikut conference ini dan feel so lucky karena saya ketemu banyak banget guru-guru yang bisa saya ikutin jejaknya, dan juga paper saya juga beberapa kali juga udah dipublish.
Without further ado, I'd like to invite the respected chairman of 2022 Faculty of Economics and Business, Universitas Brawijaya International Conference, Mrs. Sylviasna Prestianawati SEMSI, to deliver the opening remark.
Well, thank you. Good morning, all participants and our respected speakers. Alhamdulillah, today we can having the very prestigious occasion that is Faculty of Economics and Business International Conference. Actually, this is my gratitude to be here with you all, and also we can contribute to our development of innovation for economic development after COVID-19 pandemic. And we also would like to thank to all the participants here, the presenter, the participant, and also the committee. And the special thanks we would like to deliver for our Dean, Mr. Abdul Gofar, and also our Vice Dean of Academic Affairs, Mr. Ainur Rafiq. And also special thanks for aibpm, who very support us in having this international conference. And also I would like to send my gratitude to all the invited speakers that today will deliver and also wider our knowledge and also the experience. We hope that this conference can bring us to the better development of economics, and our contribution as the academics and scholars and researchers to the improving the economic development for our society welfare. Thank you for your support and also your participation. Have a nice conference and see you in the next conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Sylvie, for the speech and to make this conference possible to happen. Well, ladies and gentlemen, before we start seminar sessions, I'd like to invite all panelists and participants to turn on the camera. We will take group pictures and the committee will be helping to capture it in a moment. To remind all presenters to format their Zoom name based on their presentations room. For example, if I'm assigned in room 4 and I'll need to rename my Zoom to R4 Aulia Herdiani and then so forth. And then for section chairs, please add SC in the beginning followed by R with your room's number and then your full name. Ladies and gentlemen, we'd also like to invite you to share today's photo to your Instagram and then give the hashtag 2022 FEBIC, FEBIC, and then hashtag info for academia 4 for number 4, and then the best Instagram post will get the free entry to our next conference. We also invite you to follow our Instagram at info@aibpm and our YouTube channel on aibpm Talk Series to obtain information about our upcoming events, publication opportunities, and also the video of our conferences. The information also has been shared in the chat box, as well as other important information related to the coming event and also opportunities. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I'm excited to introduce the keynote speakers of today's conference. We have 5 excellent speakers with us right now. First one is Dr. Sharif Russell from Flinders University, Australia, followed by Dr. Sergey Ivanov from University of the District of Columbia, United States of America, and then Professor Dr. Romy Frederick Littrell from National Research University, High School of Economics, Russia. And then the last but not the least, Associate Professor Dr. Anis Jani Ali from University Sains, Malaysia. It is also my deep pleasure to introduce you the moderator for today's event, Mrs. Husnul Hatima, SEMSA, AKCA. Good morning, Mrs. Husnul.
Morning, Miss Aulia. Thank you.
Okay, so is everything excellent in your side?
Excellent.
Okay, thank you. But at first, let me briefly explain her bio. Husnul Hatima is currently the expert staff of the Vice Dean at Faculty of Economics and Business Universitas Brawijaya. Mrs. Husnul also possesses an excellent academic background. She graduated from Universitas Tadulako, majoring in accounting in 2012, and then she continued her master's degree in Universitas Brawijaya, majoring in Sharia accounting in 2013. She is currently pursuing a doctoral program with the same major in Universitas Brawijaya. She has also conducted a number of research in management accounting and also wrote a fiction book entitled Assalamualaikum Mimpi. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, please welcome Mrs. Husnul. Mrs. Husnul, the screen and the time are yours.
Okay. My sound is clear, Aulia?
Yes, but maybe you need to adjust the volume.
Now? Okay. Clear? Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Miss Aulia Herdiani. I am Husnul Hatima. I will be the moderator for today's conference. First thing first, I will announce the rules and the presentation time before I start to introduce the keynote speaker. Today we have 4 keynote speakers. Dr. Sharif Fraser from Flinders University, Australia. Dr. Sergey Ivanov from University of District of Columbia, United States of America. Professor Romy F. Littrell from National Research University Higher School of Economic Russia, and the last Associate Professor, Dr. Anis Jenny Ali, University Science Malaysia. And here is the conference rules. All online participants will be mute during the presentation. There will be a Q&A session after the keynote speaker finishes their presentation, and the moderator has the authority to choose who will deliver the question or suggestion. Before I start, I would like to inform you that each keynote speaker has 30 minutes to present their slide, and the question and answer session will be done after the presentation session. So, Associate Professor Dr. Anis Jenny Ali is already with us. Hello, Dr. Anis Jenny Ali. Let me introduce.
Assalamualaikum.
Okay.
All right, good. Thank you, Dr.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Okay.
Right.
I introduce your Associate Professor Dr. Anis Jenny Ali, Professor in International Business at School of Management, University Science Malaysia, So, and has been working at USM since 2003. He received his PhD and Master of University of Groningen, the Netherlands, with a thesis entitled The Intercultural Adaptation of Expatriate Spouses and Children. He has been teaching courses and conducting research in international human resource management, expatriates and repatriates, cultural adaptation, international management, international business, business communication, and organizational behavior. He is an active person in funding and organizing many international and local events and programs for students across ASEAN, such as ASEAN Future Leader Summit, AFLES ASEAN and ASEANpreneur, pitching competition, USM International Week, A Night Hope, and many more. He is devoted to share his knowledge and experience in developing leadership skills among students. So, Dr. Anis Jenny Ali, the time is yours.
Oh, it's my presentation now.
Yeah.
All right. Assalamualaikum and good morning, everyone. Okay, I was scheduled at 10 o'clock, but I believe now it's only 9:30, right? But it's okay. I can continue. Giving presentation. But let me share with you first. Give me a few minutes, everyone. Okay, can you see the slide?
Processor.
Can you see the slide right now?
Yeah.
You can see, right? Okay, all right. So my title for today, ladies and gentlemen, of course, mahasiswa. I believe there are so many mahasiswa today, all the S1 and S2 student doing your masters and PhD, and also my academician fellows. Welcome to this FEB-UB International Conference, FEBIC. So my title for today is Adaptation Challenges for Expatriates Living in Challenging Countries. Well, most of the time, the research are done on the countries that is very normal, right? People are living in Jakarta, people living in Indonesia, people living in a peaceful country. So my discussion for today is for expatriate living in challenging countries. I will introduce to you what challenging countries mean afterwards, all right? Good. So yeah, with the COVID-19, with the slow growth of economic and then rising terrorism everywhere, and then political conflict and instabilities, and the issues of corruption lead to a very a little bit chaos, global advancement in our world nowadays, ladies and gentlemen. And the expatriate, even though with the COVID-19, they are still expatriate living in those countries, right? They live overseas because they are working overseas in order to run the organization. For example, Intel, Bosch, during the COVID-19, some of the expatriates were not asked to leave the country, for example, Malaysia, because they have big factories in Malaysia for Intel and for Bosch. So they let their expatriates to keep on working in Malaysia, right? So these people are still living in this country and continue working even during the high peak of COVID-19. Of course, they have to do that in order to supply the products and the things that that all of us need in our daily life. So this global business community known as expatriate living in the host countries are constantly engulfed in the issues of multicultural workplace, environmental, socio-economic, and also terrorism challenges. And these, ladies and gentlemen, for those who are new to the word expatriates, or it is known as the word expat, right? That is a short term for expatriates. Is someone who does not live in their own country, and then either they are working, they are studying, or they are following the other family members. So these are known as expatriates. By a clearer definition, it says that the expatriate has to live in the other countries for a minimum of 6 to 9 month period, right? To be called as expatriates. All right, let me continue, ladies and gentlemen. So the definition of expatriate adaptation is the degree of fit between the expatriate and the new environment that they live in, right? In both work and non-work domains, or the perceived degree of comfort and familiarity with the foreign culture. For example, if I'm invited to go and work at your university, Dr. Husnul Hatima, so I will be called as expatriate, right? That is expatriate in academic world, right? So for example, Hilman B, you are invited to work in the Netherlands. You are known as expatriate working with organizations. All right. For example, also with the MC Aulia, if you are invited to come and work as academic in Malaysia or in the Philippines, so you will be expatriates in the academic world. All right. So that is expatriate adaptation. And then it's important to note that factors such as family support and also destination image. Where do you work? For example, you'll be very happy if they assign you to work in the Netherlands, but your feelings could be a little bit of mix if you are assigned to work in the Nigeria country or in the African countries. For example, Dr. Husnul, if your university assign you to work in the Netherlands, you'll be very happy, right? Right, but then if your rector asks you to go and work in Nigeria for 6 months, What is your first reaction? You say,
maybe I don't know, sir.
Yes,
about
You have these mixed feelings because there are some countries that you feel very happy to go and work with because the environment is different, and there are some countries that you would thought, give me a few days to think about it before you give the answer to your rector, right, or to your boss. So these are what I'm trying to, this is a study with my PhD student, with Mr. Dagi Abdullahi. He is from Nigeria. So we are trying to study what are the expatriate adaptation. Is it the same or different a little bit with the countries that are challenging to live in? All right, so the organizational support, of course, these are very necessary in order to contribute to expatriate adaptation. All right, what is hostile environment? I believe there are many students following this, right? Maybe Mr. Khalid Rahman. What is hostile environment? Or Adrian Unishari or Gerin Naldi?
Yes.
Right. So what is hostile environment? Hostile environment is any environment with potential presence of severe physical threats such as war, civil insurrection, terrorism, uncontrolled violence, and also crime, right? So it is any setting in which people are exposed to international or intentional violence, right? Involving acts of terror or other criminal activities, such as banditry, insurgency, kidnapping, and robbery. So if you live in a country that is constantly having war, right, that having civil insurrection, terrorism, attack, and an uncontrolled violence and crime, you would definitely not feel peaceful or feel peace to live in that country, right? Because you at any time you feel that you are exposed to any violence, right, that involving acts of terror or other criminal activities. For example, if you leave your house, you don't feel safe. If I leave my family at home while working in, for example, in Algeria, would they be happy or would they be safe while I go to work at my office? So these are the issues regarding this expatriate living in hostile environment. All right, so this description aligns with classification made by the Global Terror Index, which is annually published by the Institute for Economics and Peace, United Nations Homicide Rate, and also United Nations Human Development Index. And this description aligns with classifications made by the Global Terror Index, which is annually published by the Institute for Economics and Peace, the United Nations Homicide Rate, and United Nations Human Development Index. So I think I'm repeating myself. I'm sorry, guys. All right, so what are the countries with high risk? If you see the world map that I put here, right, the one that I put with the country's name, these are considered as the top countries that are very risky to live in. All right, for example, you see that you can see Afghanistan, you can see Pakistan, you can see Myanmar, you can see Yemen, you can see Somalia, ladies and gentlemen, and you can see Iraq, right? This is Iraq over here, and you can see Syria, you can see Sudan, and of course you have Palestine, and you can see Nigeria, and you can see Congo, right? This is Nigeria, and this is Congo, and this is Sudan. And all these countries are considered as very high risk to work, right? If you were offered to go and work in these countries, well, actually, you need a few days to think about it, as the doctor has mentioned before, or you need, to discuss more with your boss. What are the actions that the company can provide to me, then can make sure that I will be safe in that particular countries, right? Because when you become expatriate and your company send you or university send you to work overseas, the assignment is usually a few months or a few years, right? So in order to do this, you want to make sure that you would feel safe living in that country. And moreover, if you bring your family along with you, then you have to make sure that you and your family at home are going to be safe, right? So these are, there are countries with high risk that expatriate usually they are expatriate. For example, in Nigeria, even though it is listed as among the top 10 country that is very risky to live with, there are nowadays about 1,800 expatriate living in Nigeria, right? Because they are working. For example, most of the expatriate in Nigeria are coming from China because they are involved in the construction site, right? So these people contribute to the development of these risky countries, but at the same time, they are risking their life, and they're risking their life in order to work in that particular countries. All right, if you have any question, you can ask me afterwards and later on. All right, so yeah, I give you already example of what it is, the feeling of being asked to work in countries that is highly developed and countries that is less developed, and also in a very high risky countries that make you think a lot more if you want to accept the offer to become expatriates. All right, ladies and gentlemen. So yeah, because these organizations are therefore encouraged, right, the companies and the universities who send expatriate, they are encouraged to step up actions to enhance measurement to make sure that the expatriates who live overseas are feeling safe and are safe living in that particular country. All right, so yeah, Martins and Tome, they recommend pre-departure training for expatriates, right? Because this will add a lot more knowledge on how the expatriate can adapt and adjust better in the new country. So ladies and gentlemen, okay, of course, yeah, there are a lot of research on expatriate adaptation. So you can look at this, like Black and Mendenhall, they are the father of expatriate adaptation, Russell, Berry, and all, and also Early and Ang, and also Ali, Van der Sea, and Sanders, that was published in very previous years. All right, so this, ladies and gentlemen, the framework that my PhD student, Mr. Dagi Abdullahi, and also myself, we are working with on this framework, on this research. So we put the independent variable as hostile environment, and under the hostile environment are the elements of terrorism, kidnapping, workplace bullying, culture shock, and also job security. And all these can actually can give negative news or negative elements to the expatriate adaptation. So all these actually are negatively related to the expatriate adaptation in the risky countries. All right, good. So I move a little bit. Yeah, let me discuss a little bit about terrorism. I believe that everybody have heard of the word terrorism, so terrorists. Yeah, sometimes, yeah, for example, in Nigeria, it happens almost every month or every week, because there are people who come and attack schools, right? For example, in Pakistan also, these are happening where all these terrorists come and attack schools, right? So they attack the kids. So just imagine if you are expatriates, you have your kids going with you to these particular countries, and you send them to schools, and you would not feel very good while working over there, because you would be thinking of my kids or my children studying at school. Are they going to be safe or not? Right, so these are the terrorism. And the next one, ladies and gentlemen, is kidnapping. Back to what I've mentioned just now. Kidnapping in Nigeria is happening almost every month, where all these, I forgot the term, the word for this, buka, what is that? Yes, they have this one group that they go against the education, right, in Nigeria. So this group, they go against the education that is being introduced by the government. So what they are doing is they go to the school and they kidnap school kids and the young ones, right? For example, the youngsters studying at the high school, they just went in one day and then just with their machine gun and pistols and everything, they kidnap the school kids, right? So this is kidnapping happening. So if expatriates are living in these particular countries, and also, even expatriates are being kidnapped in Nigeria, right? Because these people, they would like to ask for ransom, for money. So because they need money, so the easiest way to do is they kidnap expatriates while working on the construction site. And of course, the company have to pay money to release the expatriate. And this definitely will give negative experiences to the expatriate in order to live in that particular country nicely, in order to contribute to their working place. All right. So the next one, sorry, ladies and gentlemen, is the workplace bullying. Workplace bullying can happen in any form, right? Form of constant harassment or humiliation from others in the workplace that exposes any employee to either physical, emotional, or psychological harm or threat. And this is called as psychological bullying at workplace. Well, for some, it becomes a very extreme, negative, and persistent form of emotional abuse, and this can hurt the feelings and the motivation of the employees at the same time. All right, and this also can contribute to the adaptation of the expatriates living in the particular countries, because yeah, for some countries the power distance is very high, and some countries the power distance is very low. And for those who are working in the power distant countries, probably the workplace bullying is common, right, compared to the not so high power distant countries. So ladies and gentlemen, the next one is culture shock. Of course, yeah, culture shock, as I asked our doctor just now, right? It can be anything, right? For example, we are from the middle, highly developed countries, right? When we are asked to go to the less developed countries, that experiences of living could give a higher culture shock to us. With this higher culture shock, with a lot of differences in cultures and everything like that, would also impact the expatriate adaptation and adjustment living in that particular countries. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, and also the last one that I would like to, my student also would like to study is about job security. For example, if you're living in a very hostile environment, the job security is becoming less, right? For example, if you go and work in Jakarta, if you're in Jogja, if you are working in Malang, job security could be good, or but then if you are going to work in Pakistan or in Nigeria, for example, because there's terrorism and everything like that, you could easily lose your job, right? Because of the kidnapping, because of this terrorism, things that going on, you could easily lose your job. I mean, of course, the company of your multinational company that send you to work in this particular country definitely will ask you to come back home if anything happen. But sometimes, when this terrorist attack happen, even the airport is also closed. So how are you going to leave that particular countries who are in very risky life and risky environment to go and work as expatriate in a very high risk countries? All right, good. And that is why the support needed by expatriate who live in these hostile countries are a lot more needed compared to the expatriate who are living in a normal developed countries, right? So that is why my student Dagi Abdullahi and myself, we are studying the impact of these negative elements in these high-risk countries that are given to the expatriate adaptation while working in that particular countries. All right, ladies and gentlemen, terima kasih banyak. Thank you, Danke. Thank you so much. I give back. Yes.
Okay.
I return the floor to Dr. Husnul Hatima.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. So now I will start the Q&A session for Dr. Anis Ali.
Yes.
Should any of the participants have any question, please raise your hand and we'll unmute.
Don't forget to unmute yourself.
Okay. Okay, we have one
We have
participant,
okay. Where is the chat box? Is it
Mr. Wiwin or Miss Wiwin?
Mr.
Oh,
Willy
Mr. Okay.
Husnul Khat.
Go ahead,
Okay,
Dr. Wiwin.
okay, Mr. Wiwin,
It's
the
very,
time is yours.
yeah, thank you, Ibu Husnul Khotimah. Nice to get the insight from you, Mr. Anis Ali. I am
Most
Willy
welcome, sir.
Jati from Bandung Institute of Technology. I think it's very interesting about in your map in your presentation, presentation, and I think I know that the Pakistan, Iraq, Syria is high risk, but Indonesia in the map is red. Is mean high risk or what?
Yeah, okay, all right. Good question, Dr. Wiwin. For example, the map is showing the scale, right? Because every year they make a questionnaire on the risk of the countries to live. But the one with the name put, all right, maybe I can share the screen one more time. Those are the highest risks, right? Okay, Indonesia is, of course, it put it there is the high risk, but the one that is written the name, the level of riskiness is higher, right? So no need to worry about about this Indonesia. Your country is very peaceful, all right? No need to worry. Except of course,
yeah, Dr. Anis, if you see in here that in North America is zero, yeah, as mean medium risk, but you must understood that in USA many people using the gun, yeah.
Correct. Yes.
So many kids in USA, I think what is the civilization kill another in
the attack.
school
That is also
other
the
than
attack.
Indonesia. So
correct.
I think better if the Indonesia is blue or green or something, not red, yeah. Because
I believe with you, Dr. Wiwin. Thank you so much for bringing this matter up, Dr. Wiwin, because of course, this has been done by the American organization, so they could be a little bit biased, right? Yes. So I copied this from the www.dawn.com news. So they were the one who make the scale, right? They were the one who make the scale on the riskiness of the countries. But then you can see also Malaysia is also a medium risk. The one with the red are the extreme risk. Okay, maybe next time I will. If you can see this, can you see this, Dr. Wiwin?
Yes.
The country, the Syria, Sudan, Congo, Pakistan, Somalia, Afghanistan, Iraq, Myanmar, Yemen, and Nigeria, they are extremely risky to live in.
Agreed about that.
All right. Yes. Of course, only these are the top 10. All right, nothing to worry about. I know Indonesia is very peaceful. No worries about it.
Thank you, Dr. Anis.
You're most welcome, Dr. Wiwin. Silakan.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Wiwin. It's clear, Mr. Wiwin. So I give one more for participant. Will you ask question? Place your hand, or you give a chat box, Right, is the chat
And
box.
you can ask me question in Bahasa Indonesia too, no worries.
Oh yeah, okay.
Silakan. Anybody
Silakan.
Yang
Okay.
mau, yang mau
Miss
silakan.
Ika Janita Dewi.
Silakan, Miss
Silakan.
Ika.
Thank you, Dr. Husnul Hatimah.
Hi, Dr. Ika.
Dr. Anis Ali, I would like to ask you a question on your interesting presentations about sending expatriates abroad. We know that globalization is imperative, so we have to send our men to go overseas to become the representatives of the company. Based on the risk that you already presented on the how risky actually the countries that we are sending out our employees to go overseas to represent our companies. So do you think that we should look for several particular characteristics of the candidates to be sent out to these foreign countries with such high risk for them to easily adapt and for them somehow to easily understand the risky environment. Do you think that we should look for particular characteristics, and what are the characteristics that we should look for?
Dr.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ika. If I discuss about that, that will take about like 1 or 2 hours. It will be like a normal lecture discussion. Of course, yeah, we need, in order to select expatriate, we need to see all the important characteristics. For example, the emotional stability, right? You have to see that because a lot of expatriate, that is why when the company wants to offer the job working in high-risk countries, the companies need to do a lot of assessment. The companies need to do a lot of measurement and assessment to be given to the expatriate to see if they can easily adjust or adapt to a particular countries. The one that I presented today is about high-risk countries, right? For example, the one who will come to work in Malaysia compared to the one who come and work in Pakistan, the measurement of being a person who can easily adapt and adjust will be different. There are so many things. For example, Shell International, when they want to select their employees to go and work overseas, of course, yeah, the employees have to apply first. When the employees apply the task or the job to work overseas, the Human Resource Department will call them and ask them to do assessment and ask them to take questionnaires and to do questionnaires. For example, the multicultural personality questionnaires, they will test on their emotional stability, their adaptation, their communication ability and everything like that, right? And the Human Resource Department will look at the scale, the total measurement of that scale. If high, the number is high, probability of that person to adjust and adapt to a new country would be better. And not only that, Shell International would also call the spouse, the husband or the wife, and also the kids to come over to the office and ask them to take the measurement and to make sure that the adaptation or the expatriation is successful. Usually Shell, okay, of course, yeah, this is the companies that have money, they will ask the expatriate or the future expatriate to go and stay in that place for 1 month or a few weeks first with the family. They will ask the expatriate to go and look at the environment and bring your wife or your husband and your kids and see if they can adjust or not in that particular country. In the first few weeks, they stay there, they feel that they have so many negative experiences, they could say no. And that is why Japanese companies, doctor, they would only send the expatriate. They will not send the Japanese, they will not send the expatriate with the wife and the kids because they know the wife and the kids will have difficulties in adjusting in countries, in a few countries. Right, so that is why most of the Japanese companies, they only send the expatriate, mostly are the male expatriate, to work in another countries. Right, Dr. Ika? Dr. Ika?
Yeah, okay, thank you so much, Dr. Ali, for the explanation.
Yeah, if I talk about this, it will take another 1 or 2 hours.
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting topic to discuss about the globalization and the CEO as expatriates. Thank you very much.
You're most welcome, Doctor. Kindly invite me also to your universities or your organization, and I would like to share experiences with
Thank
all
you
of
very
you.
much.
You're most welcome. Terima kasih, Bu.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're most welcome.
We still have 15 more minutes for the Q&A session.
Wow.
So anyone who wants to ask may use the raise hand feature from Zoom. Yeah.
Right, go ahead.
We have a lot of time. Or
okay, I thought I was given only 30 minutes. Dr. Husnu.
Yeah.
I thought I was given only 30 minutes for the presentation, but it's okay. I would like to take more questions.
Okay.
Okay, Mas Khalid. Mas Khalid, would you like to ask any question? Or maybe Gary, Nadir, Fakri? Gary?
Maybe you can use bahasa. It's okay.
Yes, go ahead. I can speak. Ya, saya ya bolehlah kalau mau bahasa Indonesia. Silakan.
Silakan.
Ya, atau Sri Wahyuni atau Tias.
Okay, Mr.
Yes, Gary Naldi.
Fahri, Jovana.
Good
Yes.
morning, Dr. Anes Ali.
Yes. Assalamualaikum, sir.
Waalaikumsalam. Okay. I would like to ask, sir, considering the recent surges in prices and inflation factors, what effect do you think it could have to expatriates planning to be sent abroad? And what are some countermeasures that you think are appropriate for that? Thank you, sir.
Okay. Can you repeat one more time, sir?
Yes. Due to recent increase in prices, what effect do you think it could have for expatriates planning to be sent abroad? And what are some countermeasures that companies maybe can put in place to handle it? Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you so much, Geraldi. Of course, yeah, sending expatriate involve a lot of costs, and it's very expensive, especially when it involves the movement from one country to another. And then if you want to move with your family, and then the companies have to send you with you, the partners and the kids, and then the companies have to sponsor the move, yeah, from your countries to the new one, to the host country. And then the country have to pay for the school of the children and the allowances for the spouse and a lot of things. Yeah, the company have to rent even the house and everything like that. All right, so yeah, because of the prices, everything become expensive nowadays, I believe. And then because we can work online nowadays, it will be easier. I think less companies are sending lesser number of expatriates, right? Because of this, yeah, we can work online. Even now, yeah, even FEBIC, we do online, right? Usually people invite me to go and have physical conferences. But now FEBIC, yeah, we want to cut the cost, we do it online, right? And then because of COVID, and then not so many people would like to travel overseas, and this is the best way of doing work, right? Even though the time differences is there, but we can work effectively, right? For example, next month I am invited to go to Palu, to Tadulaku University for a conference. At first I thought, yeah, I would be scared to go, but the Tadulaku University lecturers convinced me it would be nice, and I'm checking the flight timetable to go. Yeah, inshallah, I'm going to Palu in a few weeks' time. Right? Is that okay? Fakri, have I answered your question? For example, the companies from Japan, they want to cut costs. They usually don't send the wife or yes to go along, and also the kids, because they say yeah, the wife and the kids can stay, right? So the easiest way to do that, within 3 or 4 months, they send the expatriate back home, right? So the expatriate do not miss the family so much. They still have they are able to travel back to home country, their home country, and spend their time with the family. So sometimes they send the wife and the kids to come to the host country, and then to stay with the husband for a few weeks or so. That's another way of cutting costs, right? To make things easier. And then I want to share stories also. For example, expatriate working with Petronas. The Malaysian company, for example, they are working in Myanmar, because Myanmar is a very high-risk country to work nowadays. They don't let the expatriate to bring their family, and they put the expatriate in a 5-star hotel. They don't let the expatriate to stay or rent any apartment outside or any house outside. They still let us put you in a 5-star hotel where the safety is okay, compared to if they are staying outside of the hotel, right? So this is one of the measures on how to make sure that the expatriate are feeling safe, right? Because they are staying at the 5-star hotel, and every day there are drivers bringing them to pick them up from the hotel and then to go to the working place, and then by the evening they are sent back to the hotel. All right, so that is that. Ladies and gentlemen, I have my PhD student with me, Mr. Dagi. Would you like to come with me? Come, I would like to introduce you to everyone. Can you take off your mask, sir? All right, come. Okay, everyone, this is Dagi Abdullahi. He is my PhD student, and we are working on the expatriate adjustment in the living in the risk countries. Thank you so much for Dagi Abdullah, because he was the one. Yes, because he was.
Hello, sir. Nice to meet you.
Because he was the one who prepared the framework and things like that. All right, and also the literature review. So I presented with all of you today. All right.
Thank you.
Good. You're most welcome, sir. All right. Do we have ada lagi apa-apa pertanyaannya?
Silakan, more, Bapak. Once more. Last question.
Yes, silakan Bapak.
I have direct message.
Okay.
Why expatriates are more in Muslim country? Is it because you misunderstood religious teaching or others?
Not really. Okay. Who asked that question, Dr. Husnul?
I don't know his name, but
okay, all right. But it's okay. Because we live in because we are in a Muslim country, Malaysia, Indonesia. Of course, Indonesia is the largest number of Muslim population in the world. That is what you think.
Oh, Khalid. Sorry, sir. Khalid.
Mr. Khalid.
Mr. Khalid. Yeah, Mr. Khalid.
Yeah, Mr. Khalid. Yeah, probably Mr. Khalid, probably from the Arab countries or from Indonesia too. Because we live in our country, of course, in a Muslim country, we see outsiders everywhere, right? For example, in Malaysia, we see expatriates everywhere because in Malaysia we have less number of people who are going to work in many sectors, right? That's why we need a lot of expatriate with the blue collar and white collar expatriate. Okay, everyone, they are expatriate, there are differences. They are blue collar and white collar. So what are the blue collar and white collar? White collar expatriates are the one who work with companies for high level, top managerial level. While the blue collar expatriate, they are the production workers. They are working in the farm, they're working in the houses as maid and everything like that. All right. So there are white and blue collar expatriate also. We can make differentiation of that. All right. So with this, of course, by Muslim country, probably Mr. Khalid are referring to Saudi, where a lot of maids are going there to work as nurses and to work as maid and everything like that. And also, a lot of Indonesian, also a lot of Malaysian also going everywhere in the world, working. That is called as expatriate too. If you look countries like the UK, the USA, Netherlands or Belgium, if you go and travel over there, you cannot actually, there are many expatriate. Probably we cannot differentiate them because they are European, because they are American, so we cannot tell which one are the local people and which one are the expatriate. Like us, we can easily tell that they are expatriate because they look totally different from us, because we are ASEAN, we look the same, and then when people from outside coming, we can tell right away that they are expatriate. So when we travel to European countries or American countries, they look the same and we cannot differentiate either they are coming from other countries or they are the local people. All right, but of course, yes, another one, Mr. Khalid, they are coming more to our country because we are the developing countries and a lot of factories are here. Right, a lot of factories because we like to have this foreign exchange thing, right? We want our countries like Malaysia and Indonesia, the Philippines and Vietnam, what else? And also Myanmar. We like to call other companies, multinational companies, to come and open factories in our countries, right? Because of course, the companies, for example, Intel. Right, Intel is international companies, but if you look at the number of factories that they have, most of the factories that they have are located in the ASEAN region, Right, Mr. Khalid, or everyone? Okay, can you, if you have the time to Google, can you tell me in which countries?
Thank you, Mr. Anis.
All right, no, I would like to add continue, right? In which countries that Intel have the factories? If you can Google that, okay, in Malaysia alone, all right, in Malaysia alone, Mr. Khalid, in Malaysia alone, Intel has three factories. In Vietnam, they have now 2. In Vietnam, they have 2. All right, and also they have in China. They also have in China. They have 2, I think, Intel factories. If you look at this, and they have also in Mexico, they have 1. So why, Dr. Khalid, why the Intel factories are located only in the ASEAN region? This is something funny that I want to share with everyone today. Why is that, Mr. Khalid? Okay, everyone, can you on your video? This will be fun. Everyone, can you on your video? Boleh di on kameranya, saya mau lihat. Semuanya boleh enggak? Oh, tadi kalau mau foto semuanya cepat itu, mau on video. Sekarang udah nggak mau. Oke, adik-adik semua mahasiswa boleh enggak? Oke, saya mau lihat semuanya video. Can you on your video, everybody? Mr. Khalid, okay. Okay, everyone.
Thank you, Mr.
No, can you show? Boleh enggak ke semuanya? I want you to show your fingers. I want you to show your fingers and your hand. Okay. Do we have European people in our conference right now? We don't have. Okay, thank you so much for showing me. Intel would like to come to our region because we ASEAN people, we have small fingers. Look at our fingers. Oh, we have Mr. Dagi. Mr. Dagi, can you come over here? Mr. Dagi is from Nigeria. Why Intel does not want to go to Nigeria and make the factory? Can you show me, us your fingers, sir? Okay, can you come closer? Come closer. I know it cannot be seen. Cannot be seen also. Maybe at the back a little bit also cannot be seen. Dagi, you're lost. Okay, all right. Okay, good. Okay, we also in my room right now, we have my student from China. Li Kuan, can you come over? You're okay now. Okay, good. Can you move a little bit so we can see your fingers, sir? Okay, that is Li Kuan. That is my hand. Can you see our hands?
Dr. Anis, may you turn off your background?
Turn off our background.
We see, yeah, we see.
Okay, never mind. Let me try one time.
Okay.
Can you see now?
No.
No. Icon, what can we do? Remove the background. How to do that? The video, right?
Yes.
Okay,
you
just
can
give me a second.
choose
None. Where is none?
virtual background. May you choose virtual background
Okay, now you can see us.
Okay, yes. So
right.
clear.
With me, come closer here first. Okay, with me, I'm ASEAN. Li Kuan is also ASEAN from China. Mr. Dagi is from Nigeria. Look at our fingers. Who have the largest fingers or the biggest fingers? Yang mana jarinya lebih gede?
This Mr.
Yeah, Mr. Dagi, right? From
Mr.
Nigeria.
Dagi, yeah, Mr. Dagi.
Of course.
I mean Mr. Dagi.
Thank you so much, Dagi and Li Kuan. Li Kuan is my master student and Dagi is my PhD student. Okay. All right, so you can see why this is the reason why Intel prefer to have factories in the ASEAN region, because we have small fingers. When you work in Intel factories, you need small fingers because you are working with small chips, correct? If you have large fingers, you will make more mistakes. Ya, jika jarinya lebih gede, lebih besar, akan banyak kesalahan yang lagi mau bikin kerja dengan aparatus yang benar-benar yang kecil-kecil itu kan. Makanya Intel pilih negara-negara Asia untuk bikin pabriknya. Right? Intel nggak mau bikin factory-nya di negara Eropa karena orangnya jarinya terlalu besar. Juga kayak di Afrika, jarinya terlalu besar, terlalu gede. Jadi nggak cocok atau nggak pas mau bikin staff atau karyawan kerjanya di pabrik. Okay. Good.
Thank you so
Terima
much,
kasih
Dr.
semuanya.
Anis.
This is
Dr.
very
Anis.
interactive
Yeah,
presentation.
so very interactive. Thank you so much for your
Alright.
insight.
You're most
So once again, I say thank you for your attention, all participants. We move to.
Terima kasih semuanya.
Yeah, okay. Thank you,
Alright.
Dr. Anis. So we move to second speaker, Dr. Sergey Ivanov. Is already with us, Dr. Ivanov. So, Dr. Sergey Ivanov, from University of the District of Columbia, United States of America. His professional practice and scholarly interests are in the field of scientific organizational research in government, multinational, and military organization. He received PhD from the George Washington University School of Business, working under the leadership of Dr. Elliot Gequist on dynamic theory in organizational science. Professor Ivanov has taught management and organizational course at the University of the District of Columbia, as well as the George Washington University, for over a decade, and provide consultant service to a wide variety of organizations, including the U.S. Department of Defense, Fortune 1000 corporation, and other clients. So, Dr. Sergey Ivanov, the time is yours.
Okay, thank you so much. Good morning, Indonesia. Good morning, Malaysia. Where is everybody located?
Malaysia, Indonesia. So maybe we have America. So
Okay.
and Russia, maybe. So China, maybe.
Wonderful. Well, good morning, everybody. It's late at night here, so if you have questions, let me know. Let's get started let me share my screen and see what we can. Let me see if. Yes, are you able to see my screen and to see?
Yes, sure. It's clear.
Okay, so so the talk is, I don't know how challenging and interesting it is, but transforming today's civilization for the future. And I called it sort of from Jakarta to Washington, D.C. Some of the basic facts today that we all know, but we sort of avoid talking about, is that we all live on one planet, on one global spaceship called Earth. And so if you're looking at the world today, you're located, some of you in Malaysia, some of you in Indonesia, some of us are all over the world, as the moderator just mentioned. And so what we have is the beginning of a planetary civilization, whether we like it or not. It's becoming less and less important which country we live in. We fundamentally speak a similar language. You can all speak English. If you go to an unknown country, if you go to China, if you speak another language, there's a Google Translator available. And so borders begin to matter less and less, unless you live in particular countries which have sort of the iron wall around them. At the same time, I don't know if, how many of you are familiar with the doomsday clock, or have ever heard about this notion? Any of you have ever heard of the doomsday clock? Well, the atomic scientists in the United States, after the development of nuclear weapons, tried to figure out and think regarding a way to see how close are we to the final catastrophe of a nuclear war. And we're actually approaching it very rapidly, with our speaker in Russia can sort of tell us how close we are to that. And so they've developed an atomic clock. And during the Cuban Missile Crisis between the United States and the Soviet Union, the world came about 2 minutes to midnight, and then late in the 1990s, it went to the 7 to 9 minutes to midnight. If you look at the world today in 2022, in January, before the war in Ukraine, the doomsday clock was moved to about 100 seconds to midnight, the closest that we have ever been to the final catastrophe, citing the threat of global nuclear war, dangers of environment, and deterioration of democracy in major countries. And that's publicly available information. You can Google it and you can get it from their website. If you look at today, and today we're sort of later, the war in Ukraine started on February 24th, 2022. So the doomsday clock is a bit off. If you look at the world is in a complete mess today, and it's probably about 60 minutes to midnight, with and we'll have a speaker from Russia. Maybe they can tell what they're saying in Russia and how close are we to using nuclear weapons in this day and age. And so the definition of success today, so what's the definition of success for the planet? And something that is success for Malaysia, something that's success for Indonesia, for Russia, for the United States, for anybody who lives on this planet. And it's defined, and I figure the people who are making the greatest difference in this world are folks who are sort of moving the industries and thought forward. And there are only very few of them. And one of them I consider is Jeff Bezos, whether you like Amazon or not. And Bezos says that the solar system can support 1 trillion people, and the Earth will be preserved like a Yellowstone National Park, thinking that where we today, in order for us as a species to survive, for all of our cultures, languages, anything to survive, we need to have booming population that lives out in space. And if you've heard of Michio Kaku, there are lots of different scientists. Michio Kaku is one of the most popular ones. He talks about traveling to Mars, traveling to the stars, and we need to move beyond the planetary sort of borders. I don't know if you how many of you have ever heard of Tesla or Elon Musk? I think they're becoming, how many of you in Indonesia? As I believe Tesla is about to build a plant in Indonesia. Is it about right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think that Tesla is going to put a gigafactory in Indonesia or some kind of a development. Elon Musk talks about launching a spaceship in the Swiss SpaceX to developing a civilization on Mars, and they're about to launch the spaceship to Mars, hopefully by I believe 2025, if everything works out well. Now, where are we today on the sort of planetary development? If you look at the civilization as a whole planet, the whole, irrespective of where we live with all our small local and national problems, one of the interesting scientists in actually former Soviet Union was Kardashev in the 1960s. And he's sort of thinking about if the civilization develops outside of its own borders, how much energy is it going to use? And he looked at, sort of thought of 3 types of civilizations. The first civilization is the one, type 1, that uses the energy on a planet, sort of somewhere where we're approaching today. A level 2 civilization would be using the energy of its own star. And level 3 would be using the energy, the amounts of energy that within its own galaxy. Now, where are we today? If you look at the planetary civilization, and we're somewhere 0, where we haven't reached any of those types. We're sort of type 0 civilization, and possibly approaching the level type 1 civilization, using the sort of planetary civilization, using the energy of the planet, and we're nowhere even near types 2 and type 3. What do we mean by the type 0 civilization? Sort of the Stone Age civilization, where we fundamentally we're disjointed, most societies are in competition. Today we're at war. We're fairly ruthless, and fundamentally, if you look at the most scholars, we're insane in academia, business, and if you look at the government and politics, it's absolutely insane what's happening worldwide. And so there is a sort of a leadership quest, and sort of what is it we need to do? And we need to move the civilization into the type 1 planetary civilization if we actually survive as the people and as a species. And these are some of the challenges that I think us as scholars we need to solve, and some of those problems sort of accumulate around innovation, leadership, and hierarchical organizations. So where are we today? And the type 0, slave labor, and if you look at about 200 to 300 years from today, the way the things we got accomplished was through slave labor. If you read Max Weber, if you look read what type of let's say if you look at Russia in the 17th century, it was predominantly a slave labor, and in many other societies. Where are we today? And it is as true as for Indonesia, it is as true for Malaysia, it is the same true for the United States, Europe, or anywhere on the planet where you go. There are organizations, and you're an employee in an organization. Where we replace the sort of slave labor with managerial employees. There's a need for association members, and I'll explain a little bit. To move into the type 1 civilization, there's a need for association members, a slightly different way from managerial employees. And type 1 and type 2, I can't even begin to think about it. It's certainly association members, but there's a lot of other things. And so type 1 requires for a fully developed human being developing his or her capabilities to pursue lifelong dreams and talents. Okay, so if you look at today, what is the type 1 sort of, if you're trying to build the planetary civilization, type 1, what are the basic requirements? And these are only some of the basic requirements that I see sort of from the point of organizations. There are other requirements from the point of technology in other areas, in other dimensions. If you look at the organizations, in order to move to the planetary civilization, there is a need for massive and growing population. So any country that has a massive population, and I believe those are actually in Indonesia is actually, you guys are right up there, China. So any country that wants to become a leading world power and playing a leading role needs a massive, fundamentally huge population. Now there is another requirement for this, is having massive organizations. If you look at the world's largest organizations in your country, in any country, they're fundamentally large and they're employing a great number of people. It cannot be it's not possible to achieve the type 1 civilizations through either slave labor. It's also impossible to achieve it through managerial hierarchy, which I sort of termed it a managerial hierarchy, because fundamentally people work there and in fear. If I look at research and the research that I've done, about 80% of people who work for a managerial organization saying that they're operating there, there's lots of fear in that company. So what's a basic unit of any society? And what you find it in every society, and it's as true as for Malaysia, Indonesia, if you travel to Latin America, North America, Europe, fundamentally the world consists of families. There was a different definition of families years from ago, but today it's sort of everybody has a uniform understanding of the family. It's not a managerial employment hierarchy. The wife doesn't work for the husband doesn't work for the wife, but it's some kind of a partnership following the traditions and cultures of any country. And the family's foundation, if you look at your family or any family, is trust. And so managerial hierarchy's foundation is fundamental fear. And so if you look at all of the organizations, some of them are fear-based, some of them are trust-based. Employment hierarchy's fundamental basis is fear. And that's where we are sort of, the world population today is engaged. About 80% of people who work today for a wage or salary are employed by those systems. Trust-based organizations are fundamentally family, partnership, and there are other types of organizations. And if you look at the managerial hierarchy, It's fundamental. It's about 80 to 90% fear that's employed. When you're in fear, you cannot work. I'll go back. If you're in fear, you fundamentally, when you're under pressure, you really cannot be creative, and you cannot create. And so anything that you do in a managerial hierarchy, operating under fear, is fundamentally a wasteful effort. And so some ideas have been popping up throughout the century. One of them is a great one, is a universal basic income, meaning that every citizen of a country should be receiving some kind of a universal income, so that that particular person can select an occupation that he or she likes and chooses. So in a way, in a planetary type of civilization, every citizen has to be sort of become a secure member of the society in order for to choose occupation freely. A simple question for those of you who have kids: do you want your children to be secure or insecure in the adulthood? And so that's sort of the cause for sort of hoarding wealth and all kinds of crazy behaviors that you look at sort of today's oligarchs. So there's a requirement for at least basic requirements for universal basic income and universal basic rights to attain security. So if you look at the societal development, so where we have been 200 years ago and where we're today and where we're going into the future, if you sort of jump back into the 1800s, the planet looked very differently than it looks today. It was a fundamentally an agrarian society with limited number of populations, usually run by monarchies. And something happened in around 1840s, 1850s. Some call it the Industrial Revolution. I call it the Great Shift. So we went into sort of the new type of society appeared, sort of the democratic society. Sort of here's the modern industrial civilization that we know of. Now there's another shift is about to happen in 2040, 2050, barring the nuclear war happening anytime between, let's say, Russia and its neighbors. But there's a global civilization that's possibly becoming even in our lifetime. When you look at this, some of the basic requirements, if you look at around 1800s, the population of the United States, and I believe the same sort of numbers hold true for all countries, and take a look at your countries. It was about 3.9 million. If you look at the population of the country today, it increased by about 100 times. And so for us to move into the next shift, the population has to increase about 100 times again. And so what type 1 civilization of tomorrow, as it looked about, is there's a need for a multi-planetary civilization, at least according to Elon Musk. The security we all should somehow get is a universal basic rights and universal basic income every citizen of the society, and that's becoming possible with the development of technology. We need to transform the hierarchy into a member-like hierarchical structure. I didn't go a lot into this in this presentation, but there's a requirement for massive organizations of people who want to be there, and not with people who are there because they need to receive a paycheck. And so sort of a simple test that I run, if you won a lottery, would you stay in your current role or would you leave? And if you look at any managerial organization anywhere, most people, there'll be mass exodus from organizations today. Further, and thinkers like Elon Musk thinks that we should completely rethink government, and he talks about Mars to get rid of special interest and coercion of politicians, and offers sort of a way of direct democracy. Perhaps we need to rethink how government is operating and perhaps there is it's time for a direct democracy rather than through representatives. And so from the era of hierarchy to the era of innovation, what fundamentally has changed the civilization of yesterday was changes in technology. And it happens that at the convergence of new technologies at the same time, predominantly energy, communication, and transportation. And so out of the necessity of moving railroad, managerial hierarchy was born until if you go into the 1800s, it actually never existed, not in your country, nor in any country. Right now, there's a development of different technologies, which there's a potential for free energy with the nuclear fusion. There's a potential of medical breakthroughs, potential of growing crops differently, potential for new housing, nanotechnology. And so all of those technologies are converging at around 2040 to 2050, depending on different things within the society. And so that after that, Michio Kaku talks about the era of magnetism with room temperature semiconductors to create permanent magnetic fields, and so you can have a fundamentally different means of transporting people, fundamentally different means of communications. Facebook is developing those headsets, thinking that you can go into the artificial intelligence. So you can actually put a neural link through Elon Musk, Tesla, and have internet in your head. So we're developing something new, and that something new requires a different organization, sort of as a reflection of a technological era. And that current managerial organization, as we know of it today, it's time to rethink. And sort of that rethinking is sort of I think it's our job, the job of sort of scholars and the job of practitioners. And so type 1 multiplanetary civilization, the world can't support 1 trillion people. We need to think about the Mars and beyond. And we need to sort of move forward. And so what can we do in order to build that civilization of the sort of a multiplanetary organization, a sort of multiplanetary civilization? And we must transform the organizational entities for our species survival to build that type 1 multiplanetary civilization. And fundamentally, every single organization, how we organize ourselves to conduct work on the planet, must be rethought. Whereas currently what we have, it's obviously it doesn't work. And it's actually lots of scholars I put Edward Deming. Today is the 122nd anniversary, I think, and Deming's birthday. So sort of glad to give this talk on Deming's birthday. And fundamentally, our future depends on it. And what happens here, what happens in your country, we're all here on the same sort of small, and it wasn't my call, it a small spaceship Earth. With that, I think that's sort of the gist of the talk, and I don't know if anybody would have any questions.
Okay, all participants, do you have any question for Dr. Sergey? Maybe after your finished presentation, sir.
Yeah, I think that's sort of some of the ideas that I wanted to show, and some of the ideas that I'm interested in, and some of the sort of things that I write, talk, and investigate and encounter it. And so it's so yeah, feel welcome to ask any questions, and if it's, and happy to discuss and happy to engage.
Okay, all participants, we will still have 15 more minutes for Q&A session, yeah, Q&A session for discuss with Dr. Sergey. Please raise your hand and unmute your speaker? Okay, we have 2%. Dr. Sergey. I give first for Mr. Wiwin and then Mr. Ika. Okay, Mr. Wiwin, time is yours.
Thank you, Ibu Husnul Hatim. Good morning, Mr. Sergey.
Good morning. Good morning.
My name
Good night. Good night in America, Mr. Wiwin. Midnight.
Midnight in USA. I think it's very good your presentation about the. I interesting about you. You mentioned that Elon Musk have the idea to what is like a Columbus, what is go to US, American, what is so the Elon Musk have the what is the vision to cope with the Mars or something. You can see, you can back to your presentation, Mr. Sergey, please.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see. Yeah, this one or which one?
This.
Let's see.
Back the population.
This one?
Yes, please. You explain more detail about this one, Mr. Sergey, please.
Yeah, I'm really happy. I think some of the greatest thinkers today are in fact people who actually do something. So if you look when Bezos thinks, if Jeff Bezos says 1 trillion people outside in the solar planet and anything, the person has done something and has built a company on the ground up. Similar with Elon Musk, starting massive companies, transforming the world of gas cars into the electric, starting the spaceship, starting the Boring company, the Neuralink company. So they're very successful people. And so there is what they say corresponds to reality that they see and the reality that they transform, which is sort of slightly different from the scholars like us when we create a PowerPoint and we can, as I believe Elon Musk joked once, and I sort of like this joke. So on a PowerPoint, you can fly to the next galaxy and come back in no time, but in reality, it's difficult to achieve. And so most of us come up with those fancy PowerPoints, but and so what they're saying is sort of the global vision, the vision of the future, the vision where we all need to go today, irrespective of the country, irrespective of where we live. And if you see the world today where you are, and irrespective that we speak a different language, and I don't know how many of you have ever used Google Translator, but I've used it. So when I meet colleagues from, I think the last time I gave a talk to the group of Chinese who have no word of English, and I had no word of Chinese except for saying thank you. And it was actually possible to translate. This technology isn't perfect yet, but it's irrespective where we are. If you look at the world, how many of you have families? How many of you have families, children?
I have 3 children, 1 girl and 2 boys.
Yeah, we all have, and yeah, wow, and you have time for conferences. But all parents love their children. We want the best for your kids. There is no other. And so we sort of we're here all together. What happens in Indonesia and what happens in the United States is going to directly impact you. What happens in Indonesia on a massive scale, or what happens between China and Taiwan is going to impact us. Well, it doesn't matter whether you in a particular religion, a particular culture. It doesn't really matter if you've traveled. And I've been around the places. If you traveled, I've been to, I think actually most of the countries. Today there was a gentleman visiting from Saudi Arabia with actually 3 kids as well. And so we have the similar values. You want well-being for your kids within your culture. You want education. You want them to growing to sort of be able to live in a world that is fairly stable and to build their own families and not engage in the criminalities that are happening right now between Russia and Ukraine. And I don't know, you guys do have a speaker from Russia, and I'm challenge you to challenge what's happening over there because it's completely insane. And so if those folks and if I ask scholars and coming in, and I just came from another conference, and all of the focus on those local issues that none of us cares about, and how to achieve this statistic in a company, or how do we sort of run this statistic and we find that survey and this survey, and most of that is completely meaningless and doesn't impact anything. And so when sort of likely there are some folks who maybe Elon Musk, if you look at the Russian oligarchs, I don't know how many of you have ever or any country, you can call any country an oligarchs, it's having a yacht, which is, I don't know, $500 million, having its own plane, purchasing its own island, in a sort of the weirdest things, people sort of having a golden toilet. I'm sure most of you dream of having a golden toilet built for yourself, but it's sort of a disgusting way to sort of spend a limited time on a planet. And when those folks, at least Elon Musk doesn't do that, at least let's build something that perhaps can survive and sustain us. And NASA just launched a rocket to change a path to the asteroids. If you look at the dinosaurs, sort of scholars, they've disappeared sort of because of an asteroid apparently or some other calamity. So why not build a planetary civilization? But how can you build it if half the world is in hunger, and if some families in Africa, if they have their own kids who have nothing to eat? So sort of silliest problems from today. And so it's time to sort of rethink, and Elon Musk is asking the right questions, and he's asking it for Mars. Probably it's politically dangerous to ask for today. Is this the government that we really need? And is the government really making the decisions? And let's take a look at the war in Russia. If the Russian people had the way of means of direct democracy, would they really all voted to bomb, let's say, the children's playgrounds in Ukraine? I mean, I don't think many of the sort of issues wouldn't happen, and it sounds like too complex, but those issues aren't really all that sort of complex. And so I think we do need to sort of realize that we do live on this global planet. I think the problems in Indonesia, let's say cutting the forest, the jungle forest in Indonesia, in Malaysia, burning it to create some, as I understand, one of the issues for the locals. I mean, we need to sort of look at it globally and what impact it's going to have on all of our societies and how can we sort of all live better. I think if something is, if it's good in your country, it's going to be really good for us as well. And we sort of need to sort of rethink the whole way how we operate. And I think that would be a nice way for all of the scholars to sort of engage in Taylor rather than engage in silliness of our own survival and publish and sort of presenting sort of silly research.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sergey.
Absolutely.
It's complete explanation. Thank you. See you.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Wiwin and Dr. Sergey. We move to Ma'am Ika. Your speaker.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Hatima, for the time. I would like to ask a question, actually 2 questions to Dr. Ivanov. I won't ask your opinions about how, what the reasons the Russians invade Ukraine, because you already stated your opinions on that. So I have 2 questions. First question is on the changes in civilization. How would the upcoming crisis that a lot of people now are predicting to happen in 2023 will change the civilization that you said that we already moved to the next civilization? Second question is how you argue on the roles of the technology in changing the global civilization. If now the Japanese argue about society 5.0, do you think that humanity will somehow crash with the development of technology in the coming civilization? Thank you very much.
Oh, wow, great question. Thank you very much. That's a profound question. I thank you, and I appreciate that. Yeah, I didn't tell you how I feel about the three question about the Nilo, but I'll tell you. And the Ukrainian refugees are popping up everywhere, and they just showed up right here at our local school. They just came from Kiev, and um the mom and daughter are here. The husband is there. Every day they call and they say they've been bombing. They wanted to go back, but the Putin started bombing Ukraine. So now they're concerned. So I don't. It doesn't really matter for any of us what the sort of people with golden toilets want to do in the yachts. But I mean, stop killing women, children, men. So I think it's not. I think the Indian Prime Minister Modi said it's not the way to go into the 21st century, and I tend to agree with sort of that position. It's not the way. And there are lots of conflicts in all other countries. 2023, I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know. I think that the living 60, I think somehow the world needs to speak up, and I think we need. None of us need this particular sort of. But there is a need for stability. I don't think anybody saw the COVID crisis. I haven't seen any expert whatsoever, and usually whenever experts predict something, the exactly opposite happens. And as Nassim Taleb was his black swan would say, I have no idea what's going to happen, and none of us. So, but I can assure you that it's going to be exactly the opposite what the majority of experts in every country tell you. So I have no idea. But what the world does need is stability, and I think that's what, as I understand, and this people are brilliant, as Elon Musk and others are need. The world does not need the World War III. So, and that will prevent from the development, which sort of goes into your third question, the use of technology. Our world is built on technology. The only reason there is a booming population, sort of we moved from the agrarian monarchy society into the sort of world civilization is because of technologies. Fundamentally, that Zoom technology is communications, which was development of a telegraph, energy, and transportation. That I actually traveled. If I wanted to go to, I haven't been to Indonesia, which I would absolutely love to go, but I went to KL. If I wanted to go to Malaysia, it would take me less than a day to get there. And pretty much it's any if you go to if you go to Australia, if you go to the US, within one day you can achieve anything. So in all of those three areas are right now expensive. There's a and energy is expensive, oil and gas. So the question is, there's lots of resources being put into the nuclear fusion. So how to make energy free, solar energy, and there's a variety of different groups working since the middle 1950s on that nuclear fusion plants. Elon Musk doesn't believe in them, but there's a sort of a great push for the nuclear fusion energy, and if that happens, I think that would be room temperature semiconductors. So when you move in electricity, you get lots of flow. So technology is very important. If you talk to Elon Musk, it's AI. I don't know if you looked about 2 weeks ago, Tesla robot. So I don't know, you guys drive cars in Indonesia, Malaysia? Yeah, I mean, I've been there, I know. And so right now it's self-driving cars. And so if you look at the number of cars today, Elon Musk predicts that everyone will have a robot. There'll be about 100 million Optimus robots. So technology is right in there, and the faster it grows, I think it's better off for us. Housing building includes technology, medical devices where you can extend your life for long times, elimination of multiple diseases. I think the world needs stability to sort of push all of this, and it would be nice if organizations actually focused on solving those long distance problems rather than focusing on sort of minutia that nobody really cares about. And so that's what drives the civilization. We need to this convergence and this full push into those technological advances to move into sort of a different age. So when you're born in, let's say in about 25 years, when the child is born from they're born in a fundamentally different environment. Maybe you are born into everyone should have housing with medical testers. So the medical lab right in your house sort of built in through the iPhone. You can have food growing that is sort of maybe the way you engineer meat and sort of develop food different. That you have free energy with different supplies. So the whole world needs to be different. You should be able to travel freely, and you should be secure in your life that you don't have to, if you sort of lose your job, that something terrible will happen. So we all need that basic security and sort of work together with each other in sort of peace and harmony. And it doesn't matter if you're Muslim, if you're Christian, if you're Jewish or whatever, if you're Buddhist. There's a thing sort of doesn't really matter. We can all live in peace and sort of moving into sort of having greater ambitions, and maybe there'll be a colony on Mars thanks to Elon Musk, and we'll sort of focusing on greater things. I think there's no way out of it, because right now the world has a very interesting problem, and we sort of talk about it, but we build that massive hierarchy in government and in the corporate life, and it's great if the leader is amazing and sort of visioning. Singapore for a long time has had an incredible leader who moved the whole country forward. I mean, you live guys there and you'll talk about it. But what if you have the leader who sort of, you know, and things change with an old age, and so they go crazy and something happens, you can end up with a nuclear war. And we need to fundamentally sort of rethink, and we're sort of being hostages to, there are a couple of countries with, if it happens in a small organization, none of us cares. The organization goes out, people get unhappy and so on. Nobody happens. But if the country has nuclear weapons and sort of is absolutely insane with a crazy leader, I think sort of we all feel it, and sort of we need to sort of rethink how the world is run, avoiding. Hitler was one example. Many say that what happens in Ukraine and Russia is a very close matching example, and God forbid the nuclear war. And there are a couple of other countries that, and they're right next to your countries, right there in Asia. And so there's got to be sort of a different mentality, a different way of looking into how we all live together. And if the question becomes also, what if a person wants to just live and not do anything, and that's fine. So it's rather for somebody to live in and sort of enjoy your life, but don't do particular evil. Let others contribute to sort of follow their dreams. And if you ever have kids, you want them to follow their dreams. So let's develop the kids so that they can sort of achieve and grow and live in peace and live in some kind of a harmony for the better. Otherwise, the human race is fundamentally doomed, because as you look at the scholars who studied dinosaurs, when the thing falls, it falls, and that's the end of it. And so there's no way out. We're either going to develop, or or the civilization is going to perish. So hopefully I answered your question.
Mrs. Ika, are you still here? Okay. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Sergey. One last question for participant. I give to Mr. Ali Jamhuri. Please unmute your speaker. Mr. Ali?
Yeah, please.
Are you still here, Mr. Ali Jamhuri? Okay. Okay. Maybe Mr. Ali have bad connection. So
any more questions?
One last call for Mr. Ali.
Yeah, I'll ask anything. I don't have all the answers. I don't promise to answer the question, but the question that our civilization faces are hard. And I think when part of the answering the question is actually the ability to formulate the question. And so when you ask a brilliant question, an answer eventually will come. But so I don't promise to answer it, but I appreciate you asking and thinking along sort of. There's a significant issue that our societies face as a collective. there is no issue that our societies don't face today that is a strictly an Indonesian problem, or strictly Malaysian problem, or strictly Finland problem. We're facing global issues. One of them is the environment, the rising of the sea levels. Cutting of the forest in Indonesia impacts every single country in the world. Nuclear war is another one. Building of a democracy is another one. I don't know if you've heard of the COVID crisis. Once it hits all of us universally around the planet. And so it's time for us to sort of resolve and think, and we have to somehow find a way to work together in a respectful way and to move sort of forward. And frankly, I don't know how many of you have traveled. Have you traveled?
Wait the second, Dr. Sergey. Mr. Ali still here. So
Please.
For panitia, may you help me for unmute Mr. Ali Jamhuri? Mr. Ali Jamhuri.
But I'll finish my thought. If you travel around and if you travel earlier, each country looked differently. But today when you travel, most of our countries look exactly the same. How many of you are from Malaysia? It looks exactly as a modernly, very well developed US. We even look alike. But yeah, please go ahead.
Wait a minute. Mr. Ali, may you click panitia have asked you to unmute. Okay. But Mr. Ali, I don't hear your voice. Mr. Ali, can you hear me? But
Maybe.
I don't hear you. Okay.
Well, ask the last question, and if you have any.
Mr. Ali, please turn on your video.
Maybe that.
Okay. Mr. Ali, your voice is not here. Maybe, okay. Mr. Ali, can you hear me? Maybe you, okay. Maybe you write your question in chat box. We don't hear your voice, sir.
Or maybe somebody else had a question.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have one question for animals. Wait a minute. Okay. You mentioned before that humanity should progress from where we are now to type 1 of civilization, saying the current situation. However, do you think this transition between type 0 to type 1 will happen anytime soon, or how long do you predict how long to the period will take? So current situation referring to various what problem, starting from the war, inflation, hunger, and many others. Please, Dr. Sergey, clear in the question?
We're there. I think we're already in the type 1. I mean, we're talking to each other. So part of us are already there. Parts of us want to go back. Part of our leaders, I think. We're sort of on the border, and you will see sort of great crisis. But we're there. Communication-wise, you and I are talking right now, and we're being on a different part of the planet. And hopefully with the further development, with the sort of peaceful development, I think that Elon Musk's idea that having a settlement on Mars will move that planet finally into the Planet One civilization, and sort of realizing that there is something else. But we need this sort of there are forces that are sort of the voice pulling us out, sort of into that stone age. So I don't have a crystal ball. I think we're there. So it's 2022. I'm hoping on the slide I put 24 to 2050. Maybe barring any catastrophes, I think we'll get there by 2030, 2035, 24, around 24 to 2050. So if you have kids now, they'll grow into that sort of planetary world where you can travel freely from one planet to the next and sort of live in a different society. And that organization that we have right now will should fundamentally change. I don't see it how it's going to change until about 2050. I just don't see it. But I think with the ideas of universal basic income and with a settlement on Mars functioning fundamentally different, it will change the sort of a different way of how we operate here on planet Earth. So the organization itself will fundamentally be different than it is today. It will still be massive, but it will operate by very different principles by which we operate. So right now, if you look at Indonesia, right now, I don't know why, but you're copying all of the American management systems. If you're in Indonesia, if you're in Russia, if you're wherever, so you blindly copying whatever we're using here. Whatever we're using here doesn't really work. And so you're copying something that doesn't work into your systems. But if you look in, give or take, I think, a decade or two, probably 2 to 3 decades, this whole fundamental notion of the organization will change, and leading to possibly the change in the way we sort of the governments operate. That will take another a little bit longer. So, but I don't have a crystal ball. That's sort of my views, and I'm glad you're recording that. We'll come back in 20 years and we'll check if the predictions are correct or not. And so hopefully they are. But I'm really looking. I think you have to be the optimist, and there are many optimists, sort of pessimists and realists. I'm optimistic. When you actually travel the world and you look at all the normal people, I think we'll make it there, and we have to. So there is no other way. Otherwise, what's the purpose to sort of move forward? And we will move there. And let's revisit that question, which is, I think, a wonderful question in 20 years, 2045, 2050, and see where we are.
Okay. Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Sergey Ivanov. The time is finished. So once again, thank you for your insight for all participants, for us in here. So I move to next speaker, Dr. Sergey. Thank you so much once again.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Goodbye. Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye, sir. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, moving on, our third keynote speaker is Professor Romy V. Lateral from National Research University, Higher School of Economic Russia, is already with us. Good morning, good afternoon, yeah. Good afternoon, Professor. Professor Romy Lateral is an AACSB, academically qualified university research and teaching professor, competent, productive, experience, 40% teaching, 40% research, and 20% service in international business. With teaching and research, specialization in cross-culture management and leadership and international business, management and leadership, and significant research and publication production. He holds PhD specialization in industrial or organizational psychology and managerial leadership across culture, 2011. Auckland University of Technology, New Zealand, and MBA California, MBA California Coast University at Santa Ana, and Bachelor degree University of Arkansas at Fayetteville. Currently, his research interest is in business and culture, management leadership, international business management, international business environment, and international business strategy. So Professor Romy F. Lateral The time is your prof.
What I'm going to talk about is a model that was developed quite a while ago by Edward T. Hall, who is an American anthropologist, cultural anthropologist, who worked for the U.S. Department of State in various countries around the world. We've also done research with Hofstede, Globe, and Schwartz, and we're aware of the research of Trompenaars. Both Hofstede and Hall look at culture as a programming of the mind that we're put into this program, and due to our cultural upbringing, we behave in certain ways in certain situations. This seems like a reasonable way to approach it. According to Hall, he sees communication as culture and culture as communication. Hofstede, if you recall, has said in the past several times that the business of international business is culture. Culture is an important issue in international business. Cultures develop to overcome problems in environments, particular environments. And human beings are generally confronted with the same kind of problems in most of the environments around the world, with weather, climate being a variable that affects culture to some degree. When we're labeling cultures, we frequently hear the idea of Eastern and Western cultures, or Asian and Western cultures. Well, these are kind of misleading labels. Asian cultures are different within each other as they are between Eastern and Western. The Southeast Asia, South Asia, Middle Eastern cultures have tremendous internal variation, perhaps greater than between, for example, Asian and European cultures. The most diverse cultural region is Sub-Saharan Africa, with sometimes relatively small countries having dozens of different languages. And language, as Hall has pointed out, communication is culture and culture is communication. So language influences culture and culture influences language. Latin American cultures have generally been influenced by their colonial heritage as much as the indigenous population. Values form the core of culture. Hofstede's seminal work back in 1980 and again in 2001 with his last book talks about models of values, cultural values. Cultural values are things that we believe in. They are what we think is rational or irrational, fair, unfair, logical, illogical, and vary across different cultures and societies. They're difficult to change, but they do change as a result of some kind of change in the ecology of the culture. Theories such as Hofstede, Schloss, Schwartz, Trompenaars, the Globe Study, Englehart's World Values Surveys are models of cultural values. To get specifically back into E.T. Hall's dimension, he posited that cultures could be categorized along two dimensions: high or low context, that is the cultural context in which we live, and polychronic and monochronic time orientation. I'm sorry, spell check helps me a little too much sometimes. But if you look at Hall's work, his body of work, it's actually more complex than these two dimensions, two sets of dimensions. He talks about proxemics, that is interpersonal space, kinesics, body language, haptics, frequency of touching across cultures, within cultures, and paralanguage, voice, tone, pitch, rhythm, that affect how we hear each other and how we attempt to communicate with each other. Hall proposes that about 55 to 65% of all communication is nonverbal. Time. As I mentioned, that Hall talks about monochronic cultures and polychronic cultures. Monochronic, one time, polychronic, many times. Northern European and American managers tend to plan and schedule activities. They're a monochronic culture. In Asian and Islamic cultures, plans are negotiated to accommodate personal relationships and events. So the preferred pace of life affects people's decisions on daily activities and lifestyles, including their behavior at work. Time and use of time are social contracts, and the times we create direct the way we live. For example, in polychronic cultures, the idea of not today, in Arabic, bukra means tomorrow, sometime in the future. We've pretty much all heard of mañana in Spanish. Mañana doesn't mean tomorrow, it means not today. So in the idea of a polychronic culture, we don't necessarily talk about fixed time. We say, we're not going to do it today, but we'll do it sometime in the future. Context, high context and low context cultures. In low context cultures, meanings are conveyed primarily through written and spoken words. For example, in Germanic, Nordic, and Anglo cultures. If we encounter people from a high context culture, this direct communication can be rude and embarrassing. Similarly, in high context cultures, communication meanings are conveyed primarily through situational and nonverbal cues. So this kind of communication is rather vague and hard to understand in a low context culture. So we see that in business situations, these interaction between these two kinds of cultures can be quite difficult and frustrating. Space, using space. When I was in New Zealand, I had a graduate student who ran a ceramic tile company, and he exported to Japan. He had a very good customer, a building company in Japan, that he would go and visit every year. One year, there was a situation where he was unable to meet a delivery schedule and caused himself to lose face and his company to lose face with their customer. Normally during the meetings, he would be integrated into the group, sitting within the table of everyone else. When he missed the year that he missed the delivery, when he came in, he found the meeting set up in an entirely different fashion, with himself isolated from the rest of the group to indicate the company's disapproval of his behavior in being not able to meet the delivery schedule. Proxemics, how close we like to be to other people. Hall measured distances in the United States and found that intimate relationships, family, spouses, parent, children, tend to interact at about 18 inches, or about 45 centimeters. Personal space, that is with friends who are not intimate, about a little over a meter, 1.2 centimeters, 120 centimeters, 1.2 meters. Social distance, people that we don't know too well, people that we meet on the street, we prefer to be about 1.2 meters to 3 meters apart. If you walk down the street in a multicultural city, you can see people separating themselves with this kind of distance. Public, people we don't know at all, we prefer at least about 3 meters between people in the United States at least. USA, we see about 1.2 meters apart. Jamaica, a collective culture, we have a much closer relationship between one another. Finland, of course, we don't get out much in Finland, particularly in the winter, but when we do, we use as much space as possible. China, not much room, but a lot of people, so we tend to tolerate a closer interpersonal space. Similarly, for Germany, Germany is generally a country that prefers fairly large space between individuals in most situations, but are quite comfortable with a smaller personal space in certain situations. India, much like China, a lot of people, not much space. Touching. Many cultures consider touching one another to be an appropriate behavior in public. Of course, in the United States, touching one another, particularly men, is not a comfortable situation. You'll find that when you're talking to people in Arabic countries, they may put their hand on your shoulder. They may get close enough that you can smell their breath and they can smell your breath, and that's quite acceptable and customary behavior. Time. As I mentioned, monochronic time and polychronic time. Monochronic time tends to schedule, organize, and plan. Polychronic time, much less attention to schedules, organizations, and planning. Past orientation, time orientation. What occurs has happened before. There's nothing new. And the past is a good way to look at to predict the future. Present orientation, the past probably will not happen again, and the future is unpredictable. So the only thing that is real and important is what's happening now. Future orientation, we expect things to happen as we predict. And what we like to do is to create the future. We predict, schedule, and plan, and change what is to come to fit our desires. Polychronic involves in people as opposed to schedules. We complete transactions rather than meet a schedule. Appointments are not taken seriously, not nearly so much as in monochronic time. Time is less tangible in polychronic time than in monochronic time. Time is seldom experienced as wasted in polychronic cultures. We see time as a point rather than a ribbon or a road. So we are more present orientated in polychronic cultures. Monochronic cultures, we pay attention to schedules, we segment time and use time in blocks, half hour, hour, 15 minutes. We emphasize promptness and punctuality. We compartmentalize events. If we have a meeting, that meeting is what we do when we're in the meeting. And we go there, we're there for a particular amount of time, and at the end of that time, we leave the meeting. We tend to do one thing at a time. If we're in a meeting and someone else comes in, we tend to continue with the meeting that we're in and deal with the person who's joined us at a later time. We set priorities for people and for functions. We need to do this first, this next, and this can be done last. We schedule a limited number of events in a limited time frame. So in polychronic cultures, we're involved with people, we're involved with transactions rather than schedules. Planning isn't firm, can be easily broken or changed, and appointments can be broken without serious consequences. Alan Bluedorn looks at cultures and has studied them after A.T. Hall, finds that most cultures have a continuum. Some parts of the cultures are more polychronic, some parts of the cultures are more monochronic. This is a summary of what I've just discussed. I'll let you take a glance at it. Individuals can be monochronic or polychronic. Hall found that gender and polychronicity are mixed, that really the culture is more influential than gender in terms of whether a person is polychronic or monochronic in their behavior and values. Polychronic people tend to be more extroverted, more favorably inclined to change, more tolerant of ambiguity, generally have a higher education, are more likely to strive for achievement, are more impatient and irritable, and more often late and absent. Monochronic cultures tend to be countries such as Germany, England, the Nordic cultures, the United States. Japan is an interesting study. Japan has interacted, particularly after World War II, with the United States as a monochronic culture and Japan as a polychronic culture. So in Japan, the behavior in business tends to be monochronic, but the behavior in social relationships tends to be polychronic. Interesting country. Polychronic cultures, Southern Europe, Italy, Spain, to some degree France, the Near East, the Arab world, Northern Africa, Latin America, particularly Brazil, and Southeast Asia. Clock time and event time. We have a business meeting between a group from Germany and a group from Italy. They decide to have dinner that evening, and they decide at a restaurant, and they decide that they'll meet at 8:30 p.m. What does this agreement imply to the two groups? The German group sees this as we have an appointment tonight at 8:30 p.m., a monochronic culture, and we'll have dinner. The Italian group will have dinner tonight together. We'll be there sometime after 8:30 p.m., and we'll make an effort to be there before 9:30 p.m. So two different concepts of what they've just agreed to. Preston and Kim, a study in 2003, these polychronic and monochronic cultures generally lead to high conflict when you're doing business across cultures. Lots of complaints in terms of people being serious or not serious about schedules. People in monochronic cultures tend to think in units of 5 minutes. Our historic watchmaking country, Switzerland, for example, produced the first watch, first mechanical watch, divided time into 5-minute blocks. If the watch had been invented in Saudi Arabia, we might have only 4 numbers on the clock. Saudi Arabians think in terms of 15 minutes. So people, you'd have to be 20 minutes late to a meeting before feeling the need to apologize for being late. This is an interesting chart of expectations when you're having social appointments. I'll let you look through this. When you're dealing across cultures, I find this a useful approach, is when you're talking to people about meetings and schedules, you talk about what time you're using. In New Zealand, a multicultural country with a Polynesian population, the Maori, and a predominantly European population, we would talk about island time or European time. I've heard people use terms such as Malaysian time, Filipino time, island time, Hawaiian time to indicate how punctual people will be in terms of attending meetings, scheduling, and meeting schedules. If we want it to be taken seriously, we might talk about, okay, our meeting is going to be at 9:30 a.m. American time, German time, or Japanese time. Remember, Japanese are monochronic when we're dealing in business situations. High status people communicate their position by making lower status people wait for them. High status people don't necessarily have to meet rigid schedules. They expect people to accommodate them as they are more powerful and what they do is more important. When we work between cultures where the times are different, there is a great deal of stress. If we agree to a 9 o'clock meeting, on time in Germany would be 8:50 a.m. In Italy, it would be like 9 o'clock, maybe 9:30. These fit fairly well into Hofstede's model. High context cultures would tend to be individualist cultures. Low context cultures would tend to be collectivist cultures. I'll make this available to anybody who wants to email me. I'll send you a copy. You can find me on pretty much any kind of Google search with my Russian ID, which is arlatrail@hse.ru. So there's some recommended readings that are free online. There are quite a few very useful videos on Hall's model. And feel free to contact me if you'd like a copy.
Okay, thank you so much, Professor Romy, for your presentation. So for your recommended reading, so insightful for us. So, should any of participants have any question, please raise your hand and we will unmute for you. For all participants, please. Okay, we have Miss Ika Janita Dewi. The time is yours, ma'am.
Thank you, Ibu Hatima. Professor Littrell, I hope you can understand my English.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
Pardon my accent. This is Indonesian English accent.
I'm sorry.
I'm now teaching, this is Indonesian accent. So I hope you can understand my English.
I'm sorry, ma'am, I can't. Perhaps the chat.
Okay. I'm now teaching global marketing management. And we are aware of the Hofstede model of cross-cultural comparisons. My question is it still relevant for us to discuss such models with the more intense communications of cultures? Like for myself, now I watch a lot of Korean movies. I think I'm influenced by Korean cultures. I have no longer pure Indonesian culture. What do you think about the relevance of Hofstede models?
Okay, Hofstede changed his model a number of times over his lifetime, from 1980 till he passed away a couple of years ago. Yes, we use the 8-factor model of Hofstede's theory. He has developed it over the years from the initial 4-dimensional model up to what we're using now is 6 to 8 different dimensions. And he has provided online at his family website access to the various surveys that you can use to assess the multidimensional model. We've been using it recently, for example, in Russia, Iceland, Norway, China, the United States, and find that it's quite a good predictor and has a good relationship between managerial leadership behavior across cultures. Gives you a lot of insight into ways that you should behave as a managerial leader between cultures. So yes, I think it's still quite useful and valuable. Michael Benkov in Bulgaria has taken up the mantle after Hofstede passed on, and is working with Gerrit Jan Hofstede, Hofstede's son, in maintaining research and development of the theory after Hofstede has passed away.
Okay. Ma'am Ika, is it clear? Okay.
Okay, can I follow up my question, please? Professor Littrell? Is it still relevant for us to understand the culture of people by country? Meaning that the variable is based on country level. Meanwhile, in Indonesia, we have a lot of different cultures. If we talk about the eastern part of Indonesia, the culture will be very different from the western part of Indonesia.
Yes.
And also for Thailand, northern Thailand and southern Thailand would be very different. Do you think that country-based research is still relevant in this case? Thank you.
Okay. Yes. In fact, we were working closely with Gerrit before he passed away, and his last works were primarily intracultural differences, as you have mentioned. One of the most not particularly recent, but relatively recent studies have been the multicultural aspects of Brazil. We are engaged in studying Russia at my university and through my consortium, and we find differences, for example, between European Russia and Siberian. We encountered something that has been labeled the Siberian paradox. We see this kind of paradox in the United States and Australia, for example. You take a group of radical dissidents, put them together and send them somewhere, and they develop a different culture from the primary culture that they were reacting against. So Siberia was populated by dissidents in the early communist era. Australia was primarily populated by criminals whose criminality was primarily being Irish. The United States were dissidents who wanted to go find a new place where they could practice their religion as they chose. So the Siberian paradox is quite common around the world. And even within countries, large countries such as Russia and Brazil, and even the United States, we see different culture areas. We found back in 2006 in a study we did in China that there were fairly distinct culture areas in China, particularly in terms of managerial leadership behavior. However, in 2021, we reran the study, collected data from more regions, and we find that over the past 20 years or so, that China has generally become more homogeneous, that the distinctions between regions encountered in China are less than we found back in the early 2000s. So yes, countries have different culture areas, and it's important to understand them. And Hofstadter proposed that his model was applicable in such situations in some of his later writings.
Okay. Miss Ika?
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for the explanation.
Okay, thank you so much, Miss Ika. And thank you so much for Professor Romi. The time is up for this session. I move to the last speaker. Thank you so much, Professor Romi. Thank you for your insight and knowledge for us. Thank you, Prof. Prof, do you hear me?
I'm sorry, no, I didn't.
Thank you so much, Prof, for your insight and knowledge for us. This time is up for the session. I move to the last speaker for today. Thank you so much, Professor.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Professor. So, last but not least, we have Dr. Sharif Resel from College of Business, Government and Law, Flinders University from Australia. So, Dr. Sharif Resel is a lecturer of international business at Flinders University prior to joining Flinders University. Sharif held position at Monash Business School in Melbourne, Ministry of Public Administration in Bangladesh and Wageningen, Economic Research LEA in the Netherlands. Sharif's research interests are at the intersection of international business, strategy, and economic geography, specializing in location choice strategy, reshoring of business, effect of locational factor on performance, and global city effect in international business. Sharif is currently involved in numerous international research projects with high social impact. One of these research projects was awarded with a grant from the Australian government in 2021. Before joining Flinders University in December 2019, Sharif taught international business and strategy and Monash Business School for 6 years. He received commendation for outstanding teaching performance from the Deputy Vice Chancellor and Vice President or Education, Monash University. So, Dr. Sharif Resel, the time is yours, Dr.
Thank you for your kind introduction. Thank you for having me in this international conference in Indonesia. So my title of my presentation is Relocation of Global Value Chain and its Policy Implications from government's point of view. So this presentation is based on one of my co-authored publications which featured in regional studies. So if you're familiar with Australian journal ranking, so it is regional studies is a star ranked journal. So the research was published in regional studies. So I have just modified it for the audience of this international conference. So I'll present my research findings on relocations of businesses and what are the implications for the governments. So before I proceed, I'd like to show you a short video clip. So I took this video clip from YouTube. So I'll run it and I'll discuss why it's important for the developing countries, especially the countries in the Asia-Pacific region.
Dr. Sharif, the sound is not here for us, Doctor.
Oh, okay. You can't hear it? Okay. Let me try again.
Okay.
Do you get the sound?
No.
Not at all. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Okay, let me explain actually the video in that case. So in this video, it is a news clip from one of the channels based in Korea. So it highlights that Korean manufacturers are actually relocating their investment from China to Vietnam. In the report, they explain that the cost is the key reason why investors are relocating their investments from China to Vietnam. And they found Vietnam is a very good alternative because labor cost is much cheaper compared to the labor cost in China. So this was the main focus of this video clip. So let's skip this. So business relocation is not new. If you're familiar with the economic history of economic development, you know that the Industrial Revolution started in England, and over time it moved to Western European countries and then to East European countries. And now you see that China is the hub of world manufacturing sector. So again, we see a kind of movement due to some economic reasons, and some scholars also argue that there are some political reasons, like the US-China political tensions, and it also contributed to these relocations of businesses from China to Japan to Vietnam to some other Asian countries. And two big examples would be Apple's recent relocations of their manufacturing of iPhones from China to India, and another is Samsung's investment in Vietnam. So businesses always relocate their activities, their value chain, or how they organize their business activities from one country to another country based on the changes in the location advantages. So basically, every country has a unique set of location advantages. For example, we know Japan is very good for like cheap vehicles, like motor vehicles. On the other hand, we know Germany is a very good location for for luxury cars or very high quality cars. And like every country got this advantage. Every country got a cluster of a kind of economic activities. So this is what we know as the cluster of any kind of industry, and it is actually based on Porter's diamond model. So, and it happens because every country offers a unique set of advantages to the businesses located there. And on the basis of those advantages, an industry grew their activities in the region or in the location, and over time, they get a kind of fame in the world. So this is basically, it's actually the location advantages of a country. So, as you know, that we are living in a spiky world, so every country is different. Every country's location advantages are also very different, and that's why we see businesses disperse their activities across the space so that they can tap those advantages from different locations so that they are more competitive in the world market. And one example could be Apple's value chain. We see Apple organizes activities in different countries. They have they source chips from one country. For example, they source chips from Korea, Taiwan, and on the other hand, they also got some parts from European countries, and they bring them together and they assemble their products mostly in China. So you see that they actually tap location advantages from multiple countries, and this is how they're so competitive in the global market. So this is actually the focus of my today's presentation. And when we talk about location, we often look at the foundation concept in international business, and we call it eclectic paradigm. And the eclectic paradigm was proposed by John Dunning. Many scholars call him the father of international business. So according to eclectic paradigm, a firm should have 3 types of advantages before it can move to an overseas location. We call them ownership advantages, location advantages, and internalization advantages. So ownership advantages are the core competencies of a firm. So when a firm goes to an overseas location, it faces a completely unfamiliar, sometimes completely and sometimes little unfamiliar environment. So there is a kind of unfamiliarity with the environment, business environment. And these ownership advantages or the capability of a firm or core competencies of a firm help them to overcome this kind of unfamiliarity. And sometimes we call them liability of foreignness. So the liability being a foreign firm in the host market, in the foreign market. So a firm should have some capability to overcome those challenges in the foreign market. So we call them ownership advantages. Location advantages are the benefits the firm enjoys or expects to enjoy in the host market, in the foreign market. And finally, the internalization advantages are the advantages which a firm expects from the investment or the risk they are taking in the foreign market by expanding into the foreign market. So these are the 3 advantages. So a firm should have advantages from all of these 3 components. And if this condition is met, then the firm is able to go to the international market. And if anyone is missing, then according to this paradigm, the firm should stay in the domestic market and export products to the overseas market. So this is the foundation concept, and we use this concept to explain the location choices of international business firms or the multinational enterprises, or we can say the location choices of foreign direct investments. So that's the background concept. So this is one thing from a very theoretical point of view. And I'd like to present another important concept when we discuss these location choices, and that's the nature of capitalist system in the market. So I hope you are familiar with the Great Depression of the 1930s. In 1930s, there was a Great Depression, mainly in the US, but then it spread over to other countries. And during the Great Depression, there was an economist, John Keynes, and John Keynes suggested governments of different developed countries to intervene in the market. So initially it was a new classical economic system. In new classical economic system, governments had minimal intervention in the market. So there was a concept, invisible hands, and all other concepts related to low government intervention in the market. Then we see the Great Depression, and during the Great Depression, John Keynes suggested governments to intervene in the market and solve the demand side problem. So initially governments were more focused in the supply side of the equation, and after the Great Depression, governments looked into the demand side of the equation, and they started to invest in infrastructure and many other sectors to create jobs for the people. So we call them like a demand side intervention of governments. So after the Second World War, governments were highly involved in the economic management of a country, and governments were literally everywhere, like the public transport, the banking sector, any sector you take, you will see government's intervention was there mainly in developed countries, and in developing countries still we see the government intervention is very much present. But after the Second World War, there was a steady economic growth all around the world. But there was a crisis in 1970s, when we saw a crisis of fuel, like the energy. And during that crisis, people started to look into the inefficiency of government intervention in the market. And there were major two economies at that time. One is the US economy, another was the UK economy. And like it's a coincidence that we saw there was a change in 1980s in both economies. In 1979, UK elected Margaret Thatcher, and Margaret Thatcher liberalized the UK economy and minimized government intervention in the market. And US people, they elected Ronald Reagan, and Ronald Reagan was also like famous for economic reforms in the US, and Ronald Reagan also reduced government intervention in the US economy, and he liberalized US economy in 1980s. So that's from the developed country perspective. In a very similar time, we see China as a major developing country, you know that. And China was also bringing some economic reforms at very similar time. So that's a coincidence. So they adopted open door policy in 1978. You see, that is also 1980s. And then we saw China introduced a specialized economic zones in 1980, and China also became member of World Bank and IMF in 1980. And through these reforms, China opened their doors for the foreign investors, and their investments, like the investment of the foreign investors, also secured because China became a member of these two major international financial organizations. So we saw reforms in developing countries, and then we saw reforms in developed countries. And these reforms created an opportunity for collaboration between developed country businesses and developing country businesses. So we call it a kind of alliance capitalism. There was an alliance between a multinational enterprise and some contract manufacturers based in some developing countries. So they work together to reduce cost of production or cost of manufacturing activities, sorry. So we call this change as a change in the capitalist system. Initially, we call it was a hierarchical capitalist system when a firm should have ownership advantages to exploit opportunities in the foreign market. So the firm is very much reliant on its own capacity, its own capability. And then after these reforms, after the trade liberalization in developed countries and open door policy in China, a major developing country, we saw that alliances started to be developed between the firms from developed and developing countries. So we can see a kind of alliance between governments an alliance between the firms. So there was a change in the capitalist system due to these reforms. And this alliance capitalist system created opportunities for businesses to go overseas and access location advantages of developing countries. So at that time, developing countries were offering very cheap labor cost, and cheap labor cost was the major location advantages of many developing countries, and developed country firms moved into those developing countries to reduce their cost of production and gain price competitiveness in the global market. So there was a change in the system, in the capitalist system, from a hierarchical capitalist system, which was explained by John Downing as eclectic paradigm. A firm should have ownership advantages before it can go to the overseas market. And then we see that without ownership advantages, a firm can still access location advantages of overseas location by partnering with another firm from a developing country. And it started it actually motivated many businesses to offshore their business activities in developing countries. So developed countries started losing their manufacturing industry, and developing countries, they started to gain manufacturing industry or manufacturing activities in those in their locations. So it created many jobs. So, and on the other hand, manufacturing jobs lost, we saw many job losses in the manufacturing industry in developed countries. So this was the situation in 1980s, 1990s, and even just 10 years ago, that was the situation. Then we saw there was a change in developing countries. Then again, there was a change because the cost of production started to rise in developing countries. And here I have an example. And I took this data from a Boston consulting firm. So this was the labor costs in the US, and these are the labor costs in China. So you see there was a rise in labor cost in the US from 2000 to 2015. And we also see there was a rise in labor cost in China from 2000 to 2015. But we need to consider the productivity growth as well. So China has significantly improved its productivity from 13 to 42%. But it's in comparison to the productivity in the US. So China has significantly improved its productivity from 2000 to 2015, but still it's just 42% of the productivity that we see in the US market. So even after this productivity growth, and we see that the labor cost saving started to decline because of this growth in the wage rate in China. So initially in 2000, like moving into China used to save labor cost by 65% for any international business firm, but now it has reduced to just 39%. So if an international business firm moves into China, there is not enough labor cost saving because there is a rise of labor cost in China. So it's just 39%. And then you need to add the transportation cost, the coordination cost, because when you offshore your activities to a foreign market, you need to collaborate with a foreign business firm. You need to you need to communicate, and you need to oversee your production in a foreign firm. So there is a cost, like cost of traveling, cost of transportation, cost of management. So there is a kind of additional cost when you offshore your activities in a foreign market. So if we add those costs, we see that the saving has reduced from 16% to just 10%. So you see that the benefits of organizing activities in a developing countries has started to decline. So that's another change, a very recent change we are experiencing in the international in the international market. And then we saw businesses who started to relocate again. So as I said, if we're familiar with the history of economic development, then we see that the Industrial Revolution occurred in the UK, and then over time it moved into other markets in other countries. So you always see a change in the location based on the location advantages, and location advantages are very dynamic. It changes over time. So, so farms started to relocate. Some farms moved from one offshore location to another offshore location. For example, from China to Vietnam. Some farms started to reshore their activities. Reshore means going back to the home market where it started its business. And then we see kind of nearshoring, like moving business from China to Mexico for a US business farm, and for a European business farm moving activities from China to East European countries. For an Australian perspective, moving business from China to Indonesia or from China to other neighboring countries. So this is a definition of nearshoring. But businesses started to relocate its value chain, how it organizes or where it organizes its activities. So so to understand these relocations, we started a study in the United States of America. So we used the framework of this eclectic paradigm, but we relied upon an extension version of this eclectic paradigm. In this version, we had two locational factors. One is the place, another one is space. So space is actually the cluster, or the agglomeration, or the concentration of business in a location, or in a region, or in a state. And a place is the locational fundamentals like infrastructure, the mining, the weather. So all those factors are place factors, and space factors are the concentration of business in a location. And then we also looked into the organizational aspect of a business farm. And looking at these three factors, we tried to understand what factors motivate a business farm's relocation decision. So we had a couple of hypotheses. So the first hypothesis, or the Bayesian hypothesis, was that the larger farms are less likely to reshore the manufacturing operations to their home state. So larger farms, they're less likely to go back to their home state or home location. And we argued that larger farms, they have slack capitals or slack resources. They have high bargaining power because of the capital, their resources, because of the networks. So larger farms are more powerful compared to, like in a very simple way, are more powerful compared to smaller farms, and they can influence governments. They have high bargaining powers when they negotiate with governments and other businesses. So they don't need to go back to the home market. They got some fluidity. They can go anywhere they want based on location advantages. So that's the baseline hypothesis of our study. And then we had some moderators. So then we brought like some place factors and space factors. So one is incentives provided by the governments. So when home states offer incentives to relocate business activities from an offshore location to the home state, yes, then larger farms, they change their strategies and they go back to the home market just to enjoy government's incentive. Then we had another hypothesis. Is actually based on labor cost. So if labor cost is high, larger farms won't move to the home state. They would go to a state where the labor cost is low. Then we had another hypothesis is based on innovation intensity. So larger farms, as I say, they got high slack resources. They're highly capable. So when they see when they make the location decision or relocation decision, they look at the innovation intensity of a location. And larger farms often think they contribute more to the location than the gain from the location. So whenever there is a knowledge-intensive farm, for example, Silicon Valley, each farm, like every farm, learns from other farms. So we call it a spillover of knowledge. So larger farms, they share more knowledge with other farms in the location than they learn from neighboring farms because they're more capable, so other farms learn from them, not they learn from the location. And this is the reason why larger farms avoid concentration, like innovation intensity, because they think it will reduce their competitive advantages. And then we had another hypothesis, and it is based on agglomeration. So agglomeration helps farms with the supply chain, or like with providing more reliable suppliers in the location. So agglomerations means there are similar kind of businesses, many similar kind of businesses concentrated in the country or in the state or in the district. So it helps them to source raw materials very easily, or to find reliable suppliers very easily. So agglomeration often attracts businesses to relocate their activities there. So that was our final hypothesis. And based on a probit regression, we found that yes, the first hypothesis, we find support for the first hypothesis. Yes, larger firms avoid going into their home state. As I said, they got resources, they have a very good network, and they got the capability, they have the managerial knowledge, and they have high bargaining power with the governments, with other firms. And that's why they can go anywhere. And that's why larger firms are less likely to go back to their home country, home state, or home district, whatever you say. And then we also found support that government incentives attract businesses. So if governments provide incentives, yes, larger firms, they change their strategy and then they go back to their home country or home state. We also found support for our the third hypothesis, or which we call H2B, and that's the labor cost. So labor cost is a very significant factor. So if the labor cost is high, farms avoid that state or that district. Innovation intensity related hypothesis was not supported from our data, but we found support for agglomeration. So yes, agglomeration attracts businesses to the home state. So from the findings, we found some key factors. One is larger farms are more fluid. So from a developing country perspective, or from the perspective of a developing country in the Asia-Pacific region, for example, the Asia-Pacific, for example, the ASEAN countries, or an emerging economic like Indonesia, if they like to attract foreign investors, they should look at larger farms because they are more fluid. And when they relocate their business from one country to another, they are more likely to relocate their business in Indonesia, for example. So that is one factor. Another factor is agglomeration or concentration of businesses, and this is important because farms often need suppliers in close proximity. It means that they like to collaborate with them in their own location, in the same state or in the same district, so in close proximity, and it helps them to reduce transaction costs and other related costs. And that's why cluster is very important to attract businesses. Labor cost is another factor, and Asian countries naturally got low labor cost, so this is a very favorable finding for the developing countries or emerging economies. And the government incentives is another important factor. And you know that the government incentives provided in Vietnam motivated many large multinational enterprises to move their investments into Vietnam. So these are the four key factors identified by our study. And this is one example how US governments are providing incentives to US farms to relocate their business into United States. So you see some states spend more money, like Texas, They're spending billions to attract businesses. We have Michigan here, Ohio, Pennsylvania. So these states are spending billions of dollars to attract foreign investors or US businesses to relocate their activities back to the United States. And we'll be surprised to know that US governments, like state governments, altogether, they invest $80 billion every year in providing incentives to these multinational enterprises. So let me conclude my discussion. So we started with some background discussion, how offshore started and what is the capitalist system, and the change in the capitalist system motivated firms to offshore their activities in overseas location. And then we see some factors are changing in developing countries because of their economic growth. And that's why firms are relocating their activities once again. So firms are very dynamic. They always understand the changing environment, and based on the factors, they relocate their activities because they need to be competitive in the global market. So it means that from a policy point of view, from government's policy point of view, competitiveness of a region is very important. So if a country or if a government likes to improve the competitiveness of a country or a region or a district, it's important that they look into the larger firms, larger multinational enterprises, and they have the slack resources, so they are likely to relocate their activities in a country in the Asia Pacific region. So that's the main thing. So government should look at larger firms, larger multinational enterprise. Another important factor is that the cost is key for larger firms to make their location choices. So government should ensure low cost of production for them to attract foreign investments into the region. Another important factor is that the government has a direct role to play. It's not just bargaining, negotiating with larger firms. Government should provide incentives. It could be an in-kind incentives, or it could be cash incentives like US government is providing to their businesses. So incentive could be tax holiday, creating some specialized economic zones, and specialized economic zones also create a kind of self-enforcing cluster. So once a country got specialized economic zones, it attracts more businesses to come to the region, and it grows bigger and bigger. And this is how it can become a manufacturing hub in the whole region. So it got this self-reinforcing capability. So government should directly intervene in the market. It should provide incentives to businesses, and it should also create clusters, man-made clusters, so that international businesses are attracted to invest in the region. So these are the key factors identified by our study, and I think they're relevant for a country like Indonesia. And this is the reference list. So if you got any questions now, you can ask me.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Sherry Fraser. So because the time, I give one participant for us, Dr. Sharif, right? I give one participant. Have question? Please raise your hand and we will unmute your speaker. Okay, I have Firdaus. The time is yours.
Yeah, thank you very much. It was, really insight presentation. So my question is a bit different, as you have discussed it about firms and how they are dealing with the businesses going home country whenever it is suitable for them. But as there is a threat of inflation. Professor Rubini, she has forecasted the global crisis of 2008. Now she is forecasting that there will be crisis coming soon from the January 22, and it will remain till the year 23, and it will collapse almost all developing and developed countries. So how both government and these business firms will take this challenge. And she is also, explaining it that it will be a supply shock inflation. 2009 was, demand. So what will be the role of, these firms and government in aggregate to tackle this problem as we are facing the inflation crisis in Germany and Europe? Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you so much, Doctor. I think it's a very, very good question. So I think the governments are also struggling to identify the most suitable policy to address this economic crisis. But from my understanding, I think businesses are still facing a kind of supply chain challenge, and many governments are trying to motivate them to relocate some of their global value chain into the home country so that they have a reliable supply chain in the home market. And so if you're familiar with the government policies, Japanese government announced nearly $1 trillion incentive for the Japanese businesses to relocate their activities out of China so that they ensure a more reliable supply chain for the Japanese companies. And the Australian government and many other governments are subsidizing the relocation of supply chains so that the supply chain is not affected due to some economic crisis, like anticipated economic crisis in future. So yes, governments are acting and they are motivating farms to relocate, especially some developed country governments. From farms' point of view, the idea that we always learn from the business managers, and we see the businesses are split, that they are actually creating multiple supply chains. So they are not relying on a single supply chain anymore because it's not sustainable in this uncertain world. So we see, like for example, Apple does have a number of supply chains for the iPhone production. So initially they used to produce the iPhones in China. Now they are creating another supply chain in India. So they have 2 supply chains for the iPhone, one single product. You see that they're creating multiple supply chains to navigate through this uncertainty in the global economy. So farms can minimize their risk by creating more supply chains. That could be one option. From the government's point of view, they can support their own businesses, like their home country businesses, to relocate or to create more supply chains so that the risk is minimized during this anticipated crisis.
Okay, Dr. Firdaus, it's clear? Dr. Firdaus, do you hear me? It's clear your question from Dr. Sharif Rasul?
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for your time, Dr. Sharif Rasul and Professor Rami, for your sharing knowledge, sharing experience, and a lot of your kind for us for the session. But before the time is up, so I'm nice to meet you, sir. The first we meet in Zoom for today. So I want to say thank you so much again for the keynote speaker for sharing those insights with us today. Hopeful their knowledge can be of inspiration for all of us here. So now we shall return to our MC, Aulia Herdiani, to explain the next session. Okay, thanks so much, and I'm sorry for all my mistake.
No, that's okay. Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, MC Miss Aulia Herdiani, the time for you.
Okay, thank you for all keynote speakers and also Mrs. Husnul for such insightful discussions. Very well, ladies and gentlemen, those are our 4 keynote speakers with interesting presentations. We finally come to the end of the 2022 Faculty of Economics and Business Universitas Brawijaya International Conference, FEBIC, FEBIC. And it is such joyful moment to engage in this kind of event, interact with various people with different point of view, but the same excitement. Hopefully you get all necessary fruitful and engaging breakthrough knowledge on the business transformations and continuity for economic advancement. Don't forget to post the photo and testimonial in your Instagram and social media and give hashtag 2022 FEBIC, FEBIC, and hashtag info for academia. 4 stands for number 4, and then the best post will win free ticket to our next conference. Other important information is that we will announce the winners of the best presenters and then best papers from this event at our website, febic.asset.co.id, febic.asset.co.id, and our Instagram at @info_aibpm. On behalf of Faculty of Economics and Business Universitas Brawijaya, aibpm, and other co-hosts, we'd like to say thank you to all keynote speakers, moderator, participants, and especially to committees of today's program. Thank you very much for your contribution. Our apology for any inconvenience and lags during the program. Hope to engage with you soon in the next agenda. Stay productive and feel content. I am Aulia Herdiani. See you and goodbye.